Yes, Deputy St. One.
Thank you, sir. So I think we've got two questions that we must be asking ourselves. First of all, can we be confident about the statements made for the need for this facility? And secondly, even if we are so confident, is this the right site? Is this the only option for the island? I think Deputy Russell Labby likened this to a specific planning application. I fear the Assembly is being asked to determine an application in that way, in that detail, and we're not equipped at the moment with all the information we need. Now, it is clearly the case that we have an ageing demographic. We've talked about it all through this political term, and we must plan for that. Now, since the long-term care scheme was introduced, claims have increased from year on year from the beginning. But during that period of about 10 years, there's been no real addition to the bed stock in residential or care homes. Instead, what has happened is that there have been new options for care that have come into play. And we know that there are now many organisations in the island offering home care. And that's arisen because long-term care is available to meet the costs of that care. So I think that means that where somebody might once, 10 years ago or more, have felt it was becoming difficult for them to manage in their own home, and when their only option at that time was perhaps residential care, now there are other options. And thank goodness, because that would mean that we would be asking people to move into residential care far too early when they can be looked after and specific help given to them in their own homes, maintaining their independence. So that may be why the number of beds in institutionalized care, to use that phrase, has not really increased since the long-term care scheme came into being. But of course, for some people, there may come a stage where they can no longer continue at home, despite what help has been made available to them. But that could come later, at a later stage in their pathway of care. And therefore, the residential and nursing homes have coped with the same number of beds. What they're doing is that people are moving into those beds at a later stage than they might otherwise have done previously. So, can we say with certainty there's a lack of beds? I know that's been said, but I'm not sure that it's quite so simple as that, because what we've seen recently is pressure, it is true, but that pressure is arising largely due to staffing issues. They're the COVID issues. So many of the care homes and the organisations that are offering care in people's own homes have been affected by COVID. They have staff who are ill or who are direct contacts, and we're coming under pressure to provide that care. And that's on top of whatever has happened since Brexit, when we know lots of people, principally from Eastern Europe, have left the island, and that includes people who worked in the care sector. And we haven't yet found a way of replacing that care, though it's obviously a consideration and important to do so. So I'm not sure that it's a lack of beds that we're suffering from, because I don't think that would have been said pre-Brexit and pre-COVID. So we've got to work through. We've got to bring our staffing numbers up, or work more efficiently to meet these needs. But do we need more beds in nursing? I don't think we're sure of that yet. Now, possibly we may need some specific dementia facilities. And that's a work in progress. And I'm very pleased that at last work is happening on a dementia strategy. And that's being conducted under the Jersey Care model as a work stream involving Dementia Jersey, family nursing, all those involved in dementia care. And that will be looking at how care is delivered. There will need to be some permanent beds, I'm sure, but I feel sure the emphasis in that will be about looking after people where they are, where they're coming from, rather than moving them straight into homes. And the company that's been mentioned by Senator Pallett works very well with HCS and other care providers in all this planning. But I'm not aware they've come to HCS to say that they propose the specific site in St Martin's for any particular purpose. Some time ago, it came as quite a surprise to me when I learnt that as a proportion of our population, we have greater numbers of people in care homes than the UK. And there's no hard and fast evidence of why that should be, but I suspect it could well be because the industry providing a care home in Jersey can be quite a lucrative business for companies who are sometimes local, sometimes based in the UK. That may be because there's greater wealth in Jersey than some other parts of the UK, and therefore care becomes affordable for a section of the population. And then, of course, we've got a long-term care scheme, whereas the UK is still struggling to introduce its scheme. So we do have that greater proportion in institutionalised care. I'm not sure it's the best thing, and it suggests we could do more to keep people independently in the community. And there wouldn't be a need for people to go into care to address loneliness or to address their basic needs, because we should be able to do that in the community. And I think we are doing in many cases, and that will increase. And in that respect, the parishes have a key role in supporting independent living for their parishioners. And we see that happening in the accommodation that some parishes provide, in the community support, whether it's formalised as a community support group, or simply the help that comes from the parish hall, because the parish halls are excellent in knowing their parishioners. So they've got that key role, and I'm really pleased that our parish system supports that. But I don't think the parishes have a defined role in residential and nursing home care, because that's mostly provided on a commercial basis. And so, for example, I don't think St Martin's should be supporting the plans of this particular provider without having established first that there's a positive parish benefit coming their way. And even if there's that positive parish benefit to build a care home on that specific site, the opportunity should be given to all providers to provide that benefit, rather than a proposal being brought forward by only one. And perhaps other sites might be put forward that are more suitable. But this amendment would seek to introduce the words parish-specific and a specific local need arising within a parish. And I do question whether the need to provide residential or nursing care should be addressed parish by parish. It seems odd to me. The Minister's policy in the draft Bridging Island Plan is that there should be a proven island need, and that seems to me to be the right approach. Let's look at this across our small island. Now, it's true St Helier and St Brelard have residential homes which are parish-based, or they're funded by the parish, they've been built by the parish. But those parishes are large centres of population, and those homes are not there for their parishioners only. If a bed is free in those homes, I understand it's offered to those in greatest need. On an island-wide view, it would be much more difficult for rural parishes to offer a parish facility. If a bed becomes free in a nursing home, the economics of that home require that it be occupied as soon as possible, because it costs money to provide that bed. It can't be left vacant for too long without the business losing money. So the business, or the parish, if it was involved, wouldn't start by saying, well, we'll wait until a parishioner needs that bed or is ready to enter the home, when there's somebody else in another parish who doesn't get that opportunity to occupy that bed. So that's not the way it works. The way we look at things, the way the sector works, is that it looks at island-wide need, and that's how we organise the care. So I regret I can't really understand what parish-specific means in this amendment. And if the providers have an idea of what parish-specific might mean, then I think they need to consult first with government and parishes to work out how that might happen, what their vision is, and to see if that's a better way of organising this care. But I don't think they've done that consultation yet. Well, the Connétable St Martin has said that she wasn't consulted over the plans. And this is a bridging island plan. So if parish-specific ways of working have merit in this area, then let the owners of land or the providers of care come forward and discuss it, put the evidence out there, and then it can come forward in the next island plan insofar as it's necessary, though we could work out a policy which, as the Minister has said, could be developed within the current policies of the island plan. So I regret to say to the Senator that I don't see that it's appropriate to rezone this specific site for a need that I don't believe we can yet be certain about. So I would caution members about adopting this amendment, but will remain willing to work with providers if there are better ways of providing this care. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Deputy. Deputy, will you accept a point of clarification from Deputy Gardner?
Yes, I will.
Deputy Gardner.
Thank you, sir. And first of all, I'd like to say thank you for the Minister for his speech. It was very helpful for me to understand the situation. I would like to ask if Minister can clarify it, if he understands, if this provider will engage with HCS and will, together you would find out that this particular site can address specific needs. Would it be possible to make this move during the next 3 years without us adopting this amendment?
So I understand from remarks made by the Minister for the Environment that would be possible. It would be possible for an application to be made in the normal planning application process, and if a need is proven, a site could be designated, and it might possibly be this site. So I think all of that work could be carried forward down the line. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Deputy.
Thank you.
Deputy St Martin.
Thank you, sir. Sir, the Minister for the Environment will know, because I've told him a number of times, that I was disappointed with this draft Bridging Island plan. I was disappointed because I didn't feel there was enough reference to older people, whether that's older people who are well or older people who are not so well. I feel that there's a need, and I know I'm grateful to the Assembly for agreeing with me yesterday. The retirement homes in St Martin's is going to be a fantastic asset to our parish. But I think there should have been more in this plan for retirement homes. And with this specific application amendment, I think we need to realise that there's more need for residential homes, for care homes, for nursing homes. And we haven't, to my mind, addressed that. We know that the ageing population is coming down the track at a rate of knots at us. The people over 65 in the island, the numbers are going to double in a very short space of time. By the mid-2030s, we will have a massive requirement for people to need care homes, residential homes. And we know there's a need for this particular type of facility. It's my understanding, certainly at the moment, that we don't have that specialist type facility that can take people when their problems start to get to the point where they can't be coped with at home, or they can't be coped with in retirement or sheltered accommodation. The Health Minister says that, is this the only option? And if it is the only option, well, do we need the only option? And I was disappointed with that, because it's sounding like we're only going to need one of these facilities on the island. And I would say to him that I think in the coming years we're going to need more than one, and we need to start planning for it, because the problem is coming down the track at us. So the Health Minister also picked up on the word parish, and he made it sound a little bit like this is a parish scheme. Well, it's not, sir, and I would point members to the amendment in Part B, where it says after the words Approve an island should be inserted or parish specific. And the important word in that little sentence is the smallest one, or. This is not specifically for the parish. It could be, but I would point out, sir, that this is an island scheme. It's not a parish scheme, it's an island scheme, and it really is needed. There may be more suitable sites, and I agree with the Minister on that, but this is a good site. It's not easily seen from the road, it's off the road, it's a little bit detached. I mean, you wouldn't see it from the main road, and I think as sites go, it's not bad at all. So, sir, just in conclusion, I'm not going to speak long, I think we need this facility. I think the island needs this type of facility. I think it's a good site, and I'm going to support the application. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Deputy. Does any of them speak on the amendment? Connotab of St Bernard.
Thank you, sir. I would first of all stand and mention, like the proposer of the amendment, Senator Pallett, that I have experience of being on a management committee of a residential home in St Bernard's. And to clarify the point made by the Health Minister, so it's owned by the parish, but not parish funded. It is self-funded. No profit is taken, but the net profit contributes to a loan which was taken out in around 2010 to fund an essential modernisation, which really was taken at the point where the decision had to be made whether to continue with the home as it was, and it was very popular within the parish, but it was a situation where there were 50 residents with no en-suite facilities, and these rooms were no longer lettable. So it makes the point that these facilities of a residential home do need to be modern. It is not the resident that chooses very often, but the children of the residents, and I can assure members they can be quite fussy as to where their parents might go, quite clearly. I would also add at the time, sir, we had absolutely no support from the states in financing the operation, and that was a great disappointment. Things may have moved on now. So I'm aware that care needs continually change, and there is a greater need for dementia care, given that those coming into the home will very often be in their 90s and quite bluntly beyond living at home. Leaving one's own home, sir, is far from easy, and I applaud the staff who work with new residents to make it a home from home. It is a wrench, there's no question about that, and no one wishes to leave their comfortable surroundings unless it's absolutely necessary. And indications are quite clear, there is demand for this sort of accommodation. I am concerned, however, sir, over the staffing implications of a new residential care home, and I wonder where the staff may come from. The staff to resident ratio is prescribed by the Care Commission. I'm sure the Health Minister could tell us the numbers, but I know in Maison St Bernard we employ 60 or 70 people, so this is proposed to be a larger home. I can see 100 staff members being necessary. So where will they come from? Is there an intention to import staff with the sanction of the Economic Development Department, or is there an expectation they will be drawn from existing businesses? If that's the case, so the result very often, of course, is driving the price up, because every business has to look after their staff, and generally the way of doing that is by remuneration. And I think that is a risk that we have to be aware of from a governmental point of view. So, Sarah, I'm interested to hear the Senator's summing up before indicating which way I shall vote on that. But I'm a little bit torn. I'm aware that there is a need. I don't like the use of agricultural land being used for such a project, but it could be an adjunct to St Martin's, and maybe it should be done through the proper planning processes. So there are some questions to be answered. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Conrad. Deputy Gita.
Sir, I think the idea of this project in general is reasonably good, and I won't argue whether such facility is needed or not. I think the Health Minister was eloquent enough on that subject. However, I do have a problem, is that what we are actually making of the island plan. The island plan is a policy document. It's what you look at when you're trying to determine a planning application. So you have a planning application, it's precise, it's very, very well described, and then you find out in there whether it fits the policy that the whole assembly has decided. Because we're a very small place, this policy can be reasonably precise. I mean, an hour ago, we decided that a piece of land should be used exclusively for a school, or a park, or was it housing? Well, but we make policy, and we can be precise. The problem with this particular amendment is that it's much, much more precise than policy. It's actually a planning application. It's a specific field owned by a specific enterprise, developed by a specific enterprise with an architect and drawings. And what we're asking to do now is actually to determine it as a planning application. And that is really straying too far. If we were going to do that, then why do we bother with policy? We could have taken every field in Jersey one by one and decided what we wanted on them. So again, as much as this might or might not be needed, this is straying way too far into the field of determining a planning application. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Deputy. Deputy Tadier.
Thank you, sir. So I always listen carefully when I hear arguments saying that this is a planning application, because I think it's slightly more nuanced than that. I can see from the perspective of those who would want to support either this specific application or just generally having a care home on this particular field, is that the reality is that if they genuinely want that to happen, they know that the odds are vastly stacked against a planning application being successful, because it's a greenfield. There's a presumption against development in any greenfield unless you can make an exceptional circumstance. And of course, it's not clear what that exceptional circumstance would be. That's what I understand the case to be. But that's probably where my support for this stops, because I'm not in support of it for the following reasons. I think if we were to decide as an assembly, or indeed if the government were to decide as a government that they wished this field to be developed for a care home, the correct process would be then to go out to tender and say we want to accept tenders to build a care home in this, and we would accept tenders from the parish, we'll accept tenders from the charitable sector, and we'll accept tenders from presumably private investors. I put the interested party in that last category, incidentally. I want to be careful, sir, as to not to abuse parliamentary privilege, but at the same time, so let me finish my first point. The first point is that it seems to me, if we pass this today, we would not just indirectly be supporting one particular developer, we would be supporting them directly, because of course they're the ones who are up and ready to go. So as soon as we make this decision, the paperwork will go in, planning application will be put on the table, and then the presumption is no longer against this, with the case having to be made by them for the exceptional circumstances. The presumption is in favour, because we've said we want somebody to build a home on, and because they're the first ones in the queue, nobody else has put an application in, then you would decide it on the merits of the application itself, rather than if there was a better application on the table. I do have to say this, and I'm not one that believes in fates or even necessarily in synchronicities, but it so happens that I have direct experience of Lavender Villa, LV Group, as they are, because it's the group which took over Little Sisters of the Poor. And I will simply say two things. The first is that I know what Little Sisters was like when it was run by the Little Sisters. I knew what their ethos was and the community spirit there. And I know what the people who either in the home, who worked in the home, and who also lived on the grounds of the home in the flats as independent living, but nonetheless felt that that was a community that they could rely on. I know that that is completely different to the ethos that there is there now. And when I talk about synchronicities, is that when I went into town for lunch today, I got some lunch on my own, which I have no problem with. It was nice to have some downtime. And I was served by somebody who I recognised the face of, and I said, "Oh, you're not at Little Sisters anymore, you're not at the care home." He said, "No, I left." I don't want to go into too much detail, sir, because I don't want to identify him, but he simply said, "Yeah, I left because, first of all, they wanted me to work weekends and bank holidays, and they wanted to cut my holiday entitlement by 2 weeks." That's just factual, sir. Obviously, that's what he told me. So the concern I've got here is twofold. First of all, is this the right process by which, if we did want to build a new care home on this field, is that the right way to do it? I don't think it's the right process. Secondly, if we did want to do that, do we automatically want to give it to this particular company to build that facility? Certainly for my part, no, I wouldn't want to give it to this particular company to do that, especially when I've not heard from other applicants who might wish to build something arguably more suitable on that site, sir.
Thank you, Deputy. Deputy Hegarah.
Thank you, sir. Over the last week or so, members will be very clear that I've voted for little or no sites in relation to green fields. This is graded as a 3, so that's slightly more livable. However, having looked at the plans, and this is the concern I have, and I've had this discussion actually with hoteliers as well. We're proposing to build a residential care home on a site. It's a known fact that the island has no care homes, no staff to look after people. So what does that mean? That means potentially we will have to bring people in to the island to look after those individuals. Where, sir, are those people going to live? We already have a house in crisis, as we've discussed in the last 10 days. So from my perspective, sir, I do sit on the planning committee. I would want to hope, or would hope in the future, that people who bring forward plans to build residential care homes, people who bring plans forward to build hotels, etc., or if people are bringing in staff to work on farms, one would hope, sir, that we were actually considering where the staff are going to live if we know that we don't have them locally, sir. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy. Does any other member speak on this amendment? I call upon Senator Pallett to reply. Senator Pallett.
Can I firstly thank everybody that's spoken? I think there's been some really interesting comments made, although I think I need to right a few of the wrongs here. The first thing I'm going to say is there's been countless comments made about this is a planning application in front of the States Assembly, or words to that effect. This is not a planning application in front of the Assembly. It is what it says in the proposition. It's a rezoning of a site for a nursing facility. It doesn't say what type of facility. It doesn't say, it's not got the plans in. There's some initial, if I hadn't given Assembly members some indication of what might go on the site. Well, I'd have been asked, well, what's going to go on the site? So I can't win one way or the other. So I've given people some indication of what the opportunities might be on that site. So although I've written down planning application, planning application, planning application, planning application about 10 times on this piece of paper, it is not a planning application. It is what it says on the tin. It's to rezone a field, a green zone field, for a nursing facility. Before I go into any individual comments, another comment I'm going to make is how long are we going to bury our head in the sand and admit that there is not a problem coming down the line? The problem is not just a small problem, it's a tsunami, and I'm one of them, of people that are going to reach retirement age and are going to need facilities such as this at some point. I can't stress again, 57% more people are over the age of 65. Now, are we going to wait around until we find out what services we need, or are we going to be a bit more proactive? Proactive doesn't seem to be a strong word in this particular political term, but I'm going to use it. We need to be more proactive. The Minister, I am not surprised, is unsupportive. I agree with some of what he says, but I don't agree with a lot of what he says. He says there's 1,000 beds in total. I don't think there's any denial of that. Yet there's only 20 capacity for another 24, with space for 24 people at the moment. That, for me, says there's a need. And that's without any more people coming online, potentially needing these facilities. The issue around that as well is that whether you care for them in a residential facility or you care for them at home, you are still going to need people to care for them. They're still going to need support, but there are some people that will require the sort of residential care that is best suited to being provided in a residential home. And those numbers are going to increase. Can we get it into our heads that that number is going to increase? And the quicker we get ahead, the care model is not going to deal with this. We can dream all we want about the care model this, the care model that. It is not going to deal with the number of people that are coming down the line and the differences and the nuances of the care that's going to be needed, whether we like it or not. The Minister did say that he liked the over 55 homes in St Martin's. I'm glad he said that. Because in many ways, this is a sort of a follow-on from over 55s. I was quite keen when I was involved with Maisels and Brellards many, many years ago, and again, I agree with everything the Constable said around Maisels and Brellards, there was capacity around that site to actually have it as more of a facility where where some over 55s homes could be built, and it led on to finally being to a point where you could get longer term care or more acute care within Maisels and Brellards later on in life. But that's never appeared. But that type of living, where there are facilities that you could potentially move into if needed, if you need that extra care nearby within the parish, I think is something that we should be seriously considering. The Minister mentioned dementia care, and the Minister mentioned dementia care, the Minister mentioned dementia strategy. We have dragged our heels with a dementia strategy, and thank goodness we finally getting it off the ground. I met with the chair and CEO of dementia strategy of the dementia care charity only 2 weeks ago, and no, they're quite clear about what's coming down the line and the importance that government take in actually taking this seriously in terms of how we're going to deal with the extra numbers of people that are going to suffer with dementia in future. It's an awful disease. I've had people that I know suffer from it. I'm sure we all have. And it's important that we have a strategy and we have a way and a clear direction of how we're going to deal with the extra numbers in future. I'm going to come on to a little bit about dementia care when I talk about Constable St Martin's speech in a second. The Minister for the Environment Planning mentioned it's a lucrative venture. It's a private venture on a private site. What you mean by lucrative? I mean, do they have to make money? Well, unfortunately they do, because it's a private site. When and if it's rezoned, when and if they've got a planning application and it's approved. The answer is it would be lucrative. It'll have to be a profitable venture, otherwise the business will go under. I've got a feeling with the Minister, he's got something against private investment, or private investment in infrastructure that this island may need. And that's wrong. Whether it's in health or whether it's in sport, the government can't provide everything. It can provide some things, but it can't provide everything. And it's only right, I think, that we take what's on offer from private investors and the private investment seriously. He mentioned evidence of need. Again, whether you look at it long-term, holistically, strategically, there is going to be need. Do we have to do more work around need? Absolutely. And if there is a planning application at some point, then that is the point where we will have to provide evidence of need. I think the developer, the owner, knows that. I'm going to move on to Constable St Martin's speech, which I think was supportive. But she asked a few questions, and I'm going to try to answer them. I had an opportunity at lunch to phone the developer, the agent of the developer, and talk to them a little bit about what this could offer. Now, there is nothing set in stone here. There is nothing in terms of what they have drawn up that's set in stone and cannot be changed. I mentioned to them about dementia strategy. It is very much part of this scheme. It's something that they very much see as part of the scheme. But I mentioned to them, could this be Jersey's first dementia village? Before anybody says that's not a ghetto, it's where people with dementia live. And another Constable Sparrow has mentioned it before. But there is an opportunity with dementia to ensure that those that suffer, unfortunately, from that can get the care that they need in surroundings that is suitable. So the answer is yes. I think there is very much an opportunity to provide something different, something special for those that are suffering from dementia in the island. I hope that answers the Constable's question around dementia. Deputy Russell, Abby mentioned around, again, planning application. This is about rezoning. It's not around a planning application. If it was a planning application, we wouldn't even be talking about it here. The Health Minister, again, I think tried to muddy the water a little bit. I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, but there will be, he mentioned later on in life, there are going to be extra numbers here, whether he likes it or not. We are going to have to deal with that. He mentioned the long-term care scheme. The long-term care scheme, unless I'm wrong, doesn't just cover people in residential homes. It potentially will cover people that are living at home. Am I incorrect? So there's going to be a cost one way or the other, whether it's in a residential home or whether we are covering people at home. There's still that cost going to be there. Again, he mentioned a bit about lucrative. I don't think the Health Minister is against private investment as maybe some are. He will remember, and I was going to mention it when I got to Deputy Ted here, around LV. Now, I'm not going to go into the individual cases with LV. I personally, I think it was wrong to do that. But at the end of the day, LV provide the listening lounge. I think they've done an incredible job with that. Had we not had that, we would have been in all sorts of problems during lockdown, during the pandemic, and they have been a shining example, I think, of what private investment can bring. In terms of providing staff, and it'll answer another question, I think, that Deputy Lahegara had, I think as a private company, it's much easier for private companies to access staff and be able to recruit staff than it is through government. That's unfortunate. But whether we, and the question's quite right, is this going to, and Constable Sombrellas has mentioned it, is this going to draw from other businesses? Well, the answer is it might. But at the end of the day, we are going to have to recruit, train, skill up more people to work in our social sector. If we don't do that, we're never going to be able to support people living in the community, living in residential homes. We've got a problem now, and we are beginning to deal with it. You know, I think the Minister would agree. We are beginning to put training in place to provide more carers, to provide more skills that will provide for businesses such as this in future. So whether it's in a private residential home or whether it's in government-run services that do people that support people in their homes, we are still going to have to provide that support. But again, I'll get back to the point. This is about rezoning a field for a nursing facility. Let's be clear, this is not a government site, so this is not government money. This is a private site that somebody wants to put private money into to take some of the burden away from government in terms of some of the support it will provide. Are there people here that can afford to pay for that? I think we're fortunate that there are people in the island that can afford to pay for their own residential care needs. It's an affable island. We're lucky in that way. Let's not balk at that, because it takes away some of the costs and allows us to spend money on those that are less well off. So let's not balk at that. I think we've got to make the most of that. Sorry, I'm getting a bit too passionate with this, aren't I? Deputy Sir Martins, I agree with him. I think there is little or no reference in the Draft Bridging Island Plan around older people. And that's unfortunate, because they are a huge, well, we're just going to go into an election and we're soon going to find out how big a part older people play in island life. And they should have played a bigger part in this Bridging Island Plan. Again, Deputy Sir Martin mentioned, there might be more suitable sites, but as he said, this is not a bad site. But it's a site for rezoning. This is not a planning application. There may be a planning application, but there is not a planning application at the moment. This is about rezoning a site for what I believe and others believe is a much needed residential facility on the east of the island. Again, I'm not going to get with Deputy Guidi, because again, it's not a planning application. Deputy Teddier said this is a more nuanced amendment. I agree with him, but it's something that, to get to the point of getting to a planning application, is, and I can't remember which member mentioned it, unless you rezone it, it is going to go up against the current planning island plan policy. So it's going to fail. So it needs to be rezoned so that we can get to the point where a planning application has got at least an opportunity to be taken forward. And it's up to each state member to decide whether it's right to rezone this field, as we've had to make some really difficult decisions about a lot of other fields for a lot of other reasons, most of them housing. I think I've covered most of what. I thank Deputy Lahegara. She brought up some important points, but I think they will be dealt with over a period of time. And there are issues that we're going to have to deal with, whether we like it or not, because we are going to have more older people living in the island. We know that population policy says that. We know from a skills point of view that we're going to have to deal with that. Our working population is going to reduce, so we know we've got to deal with that. But this is purely about rezoning this particular field, and I much prefer we just concentrate on that just for a couple of minutes, so that we can I hope come to the right decision on this. Finally, I'm going to say, just something I wanted to add is that. Those that do go into residential homes, they do it for all sorts of reasons. Some because they're lonely, some because they need the support. But when they do that, they often free up their home that can be used either by a family member or goes on back on the open market, and it frees up homes. So, over a period of time, I don't know how many people will live on this particular or within this particular residential home when and if it's built, but it will free up homes. And it might only be 20 homes, 15 homes, but it's still 15 homes that will be back into the open market or back being used by younger families. It's a small point, but I think it's an important point. I'm going to finish just by saying, please get planning application. This is not a planning application. This is around rezoning a field for a nursing facility, as it says in the amendment. I hope members can support it. We are going to have to get our head around in various aspects of island life and future governments about engaging with and making the most of the opportunities of private investment. It doesn't matter whether it's a nursing home or it's the refurbishment or the redevelopment of Fort Regent. We are going to have to try to deal with and work with private investors to take some of the burden of cost away from the taxpayer, because the taxpayer can't pay for everything. So again, I hope members can support this and can I ask for the appel, please, sir.
So clarification, please, if I may.
Will you take a point of clarification from the Minister?
If I can give the Minister one, I certainly will, yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. The Senator, I think, either said or suggested, whichever way you look at it, that unless we pass this, a subsequent planning application would be turned down. Would he not accept what I did say was that the policy C12, which is seeking to amend, would allow where there's demonstration of need and to be passed? Would he not accept that? And also accept that also said that I was completely opposed to all private investment. Would he say it is reasonable to judge it against the benefit when we're altering a policy like this? Thank you.
On the second point, absolutely, sir, yes. And on the first point, I think what I was meaning to say is I think it would make it more difficult for it to be passed. I think having it rezoned for a specific nursing facility under the island plan, I think would make it
easier.
Yeah. Yeah.
Accept the clarification, sir.
Thank you. The appel has been called for. Members are asked to return to their seats. Those joining the meeting via the Teams link are invited to cast their votes in the chat channel and ask the greffier to open the voting for members in the chamber. Before members have had the opportunity of casting their votes, I'll ask the greffier to close the voting. And I can announce that the amendment has been rejected. 9 votes pour, 36 votes can't. Yes.
Those voting for in the chamber, Senators Moore and Pallett, the Connétables of St Brelard and St Mary, Deputy of St Martin and Deputy Pamplin. And in the chat, the Connétable of St Saviour, Deputy Wickenden and Deputy Truscott.
I'll move on to the 10th amendment, lodged by Deputy Ward. I ask the greffier to read the amendment.
After the words "the draft island plan 2022 to 25" should be inserted the words "except that." A. Within policy CI4, after the words "existing community facilities," there should be inserted the following new paragraph. To address specific deficiencies in the provision of youth facilities, the following site is safeguarded for use as a youth facility. The alternative development of this site will not be supported unless it can be demonstrated that it is no longer required for this purpose. Nelson Street Car Park, the old fire station site, Nelson Street, St Helier. B. The draft island plan 2022 to 25 should be further amended in such respects as may be necessary consequent upon the adoption of paragraph A. And C. The draft bridging island plan proposals map part A planning zones should be amended to reflect the adoption of paragraph A.
Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. And I'll promise to be as quick as I can with the opening bit, because I know we've heard enough. We're all a bit jaded. So this is, again, a proposition, an amendment, which is to protect an area from other development in the area in central St Helier. So 3.5 years ago now, in the Common Strategic Policy, this Assembly voted for, I think almost unanimously, I was searching for the actual proposition vote, but I've run out of time, to allocate money for a youth facility for the north of town, and that's still not been built. This amendment is, as read, to prevent the site around Nelson Street Car Park and the old fire station in Nelson Street from being developed for anything else other than a youth facility. But there is an important part to that. If an alternative site for a youth facility is found, then that takes away the need for that Nelson Street site, and it can be used. So what I'm saying is, this is a step to say we desperately need a youth facility in that area. The money is available. The money has been available for 3 years. But what I want to do is to make sure at least that there is one site available that is not taken away so that this facility can actually be produced. So there is a definite need for this facility in the north of St Helier, particularly again as we build more and more homes in that area. And young people have to have somewhere to go. It's no good to complaining about young people's behaviour and saying, oh, they're wandering the streets in groups and they're making a noise. So young people do tend to be a bit noisy. That's because they're young and vibrant, and that's okay. But what the youth service do is provide opportunity and activities and support and direction for young people in an astounding way on this island. And the fact that the youth facility is not a statutory body is even more astounding, but we'll come to that another time, sir. But they still provide those fantastic opportunities. What they need in the north of St Helier is a state-of-the-art facility to do that in. The money is there, we just need the site. So over the last few years, there's been I've seen plans for at least 4 sites, and all of them have been lost for one reason or another, because of the same sort of complexity as we've had with schools. The education department sites, the constables, the Jersey Development Corporation, I lose track of who they are, to be quite frank, sir, all have plans. And there have been plan after plan, but we've not seen the outcome. Now, sir, I have seen plans. I went to speak to Andium, colleagues, and we've seen the plans for the brewery site. And if those plans come ahead and that is built, fantastic, absolutely support that, then this site will not be needed. But if we don't have that site built, and we don't put some sort of protection on other sites, we will end up with nothing. And we are developing, I was going to say brewing, but that was too corny. We are developing a real problem in the centre of St Helier with no facilities. As we pack more and more people in, and as you put young families in, the reality is that young people grow. They turn into teenagers, and they go from, and then they want stuff to do, and it's different from simply running around in the park. And so we have to provide opportunities for them. So I recognise that it will mean a few parking spaces, but there is parking, huge amount being developed at the Ann Street site, which is nearby, which is actually being built as we speak.
So that can easily be dealt with, and we have to make some sort of use of it. And I recognise that it's a place for the honorary police, but sir, this is the point I will make. The honorary police will have an increasingly difficult problem in the centre of St Helier with young people and groups if we don't provide facilities. There are other places that the honorary police can move to, and it's not going to happen overnight. This is going to take a couple of years. I know that. If I'm lucky enough to be re-elected, I really hope it happens in the first couple of years of the new term so that we actually see this facility come to light. I was naive enough, sir, to believe that because this was agreed in the Common Strategic Plan, it would be done by now. But that was obviously naive. So unless we address the issues now early on, and we are proactive in addressing those issues, it won't get any better. And I'm absolutely convinced that that argument and those consultations and another place can be found for the honorary police from that site, because to be honest, sir, it needs refurbishing anyway. It's a really old building. And we need to make steps forward, and we all need to pay our contribution in the centre of St Helier to making change. So that's effectively it. The plans exist. I've seen plans for Nelson Street and the site. They exist. They have been worked upon, as well as plans for the brewery site. But what this does, it puts into the island plan, you cannot develop anything else there, only a youth facility. The money's there, the site is there, we just need the backing, as from before, from this Assembly. So I urge members to support this amendment, and I look forward to the debate, sir.
Thank you, Deputy. Is the amendment seconded?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Yes. Anyone wish to speak on this amendment? The Minister.
Just to say I support this, and hopefully the debate can be over quite quickly so we can move on.
No, you never
Yes, sir. Sorry, it's St Saviour's here. May I ask a question of clarification from the Speaker, please?
Which Speaker?
Deputy Ward.
Well, it's a bit late now because he's finished speaking and someone else spoke.
All right, sir.
If you want to make a short speech in which you ask a question, that's the way of doing it. He'll respond in his closing address.
Yes, if I may then, sir. I'm very interested to find out that the brewery are quite prepared to have a youth department there, but I had a feeling that the youth service had turned it down. Maybe maybe Deputy Ward can reassure me that if we do vote on this, there will be a youth department at the brewery. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Conor
So, happy to, oh,
well, no, that's for you to respond to in your into your closing address. Conor Tarb of St Helier.
Thank you, sir. I have discussed this proposition with the deputy in the past. In fact, I passed on his request to the St Helier Honorary Police and just sounded them out about how they would feel about relinquishing their use of the building, and that, after all, is the most important thing we're debating today. And I got a fairly uncompromising no from the Honorary Police, who moved out of the town hall for a number of good reasons into the old fire station, as we call it, when it was vacated following the transfer of welfare to the States. And it is a building that they have developed and improved, and it works extremely well for parish hall inquiries because it is not nearly as exposed and public a building for people going for their parish hall inquiry to get to, as used to be the case when they had to go to the town hall. Although, interestingly, people still turn up at the town hall some, I don't know how many years it is, 15 years later, asking where the parish hall inquiry is being held. But that aside, sir, the Nelson Street, the old fire station, is the home of the St Helier Honorary Police. And so I was a bit disappointed, having conveyed that back to the deputy, to find this amendment in the Bridging Island plan. Because clearly, and I'm sure my fellow constables would agree with this, before one takes a proposition to the States Assembly which affects, or could affect, one's honorary police force, one at the very least, I think, would hold a parish assembly to make sure that these matters are fully aired and that the feedback of honorary officers is fully heard. I think that's particularly important, sir, as we come out of a pandemic in which St Heliers Honorary Police has, by all accounts, performed incredibly well, and I know that 4 Centeneers in particular have taken on board the charging for the whole island. That's 4 St Heliers Centeneers have shouldered that burden during the pandemic, while other officers have done an enormous amount of work, unpaid of course, out in the community at antisocial hours. And so my concern about this proposition is that it doesn't send a very good message to the St Helier Honorary Police that the States Assembly, with the backing of the Environment Minister now, is saying, well, if there's nowhere else, we will potentially take their building away from them. So I think although Deputy Ward says it's not likely to happen, I think in that case putting it into the island plan could cause unnecessary concern to a force that, as I say, deserves really nothing other than our wholehearted support as a States Assembly. My second concern, sir, about the proposition is Deputy Ward referred, and I quote, to a few parking spaces. Well, there are, sir, 35 public parking spaces in Nelson Street Car Park, and they are extremely contested spaces. There are often queues of residents trying to park in there. Local residents have lost a lot of parking facilities, and the ones that the Deputy referred to that are coming on stream at Ancourt will merely replace the ones that were on that site before the development by Andiam Homes took place. So I think St Helier can ill afford to lose these spaces for locals, but also for shoppers, for visitors, people going to the town park, people indeed attending the Honorary Police parish inquiries. And I would expect there to be a fairly packed parish assembly. If this had been taken to a parish assembly, I think it would make Grouville's recent Riquette assembly look like a walk in the park. I would expect a very strong opposition indeed from St Helier residents that the idea that they might lose Nelson Street Car Park was to be endorsed in the island plan. And so for those two reasons, sir, although I understand the frustration of the Deputy waiting for these youth facilities, I really cannot endorse this amendment, and I urge other members to reflect before they vote on the impression it may well give to the St Helier Honorary Police if they were to back it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Conrad. Deputy Tellier.
So I've never been considered myself an expert psychologist, but I have looked around the Assembly at the body language of some of the Constable's fellow Connétables, and I find it slightly difficult to read, but maybe some puzzled faces. But for my part, sir, I remember coming into the Assembly early on this term, signing a pledge which said putting children first. I don't remember ever signing a pledge saying putting the St Helier Honorary Police first. And I don't mean that to be glib, sir, but the Honorary Police serve at the leisure and under the guidance, if not direct, leadership of the Constable the last time I checked. And it shouldn't be that difficult for a parish with a Constable and 10 deputies to coordinate on issues like this. It also seems to me that the very name Parish Hall Inquiry, the clue's kind of in the name, isn't it? The Parish Hall Inquiry, and I've not been to all of the 12 parish halls to be at a Parish Hall Inquiry. I've maybe been at one or two, and they tend to, by and large, be at the Parish Hall. I'm not sure if that's strange or if that's radical, but it's not called a former fire station inquiry. And this very strange argument that, well, it's more private there because you go around the back, there's a car park, and then you go in there. And, of course, you sit in a big room, a bit like this, but probably smaller, with lots of other people. And you're thinking, oh, what are you here for? Oh, I've just come to see the Centenary. I've done nothing wrong. I'm actually an advocate. I've come to represent this poor young person who's speeding. That's another side issue which I don't think we should be discussing here, but there are key issues of confidentiality which the Constable and indeed other parishes may wish to address about data protection, etc. Because I still believe in innocent till proven guilty. And when you're sitting in a big room with people like that, if confidentiality is genuinely the constable's prime concern, then I think he might need to go down one day and have a look. But I would hope that any of the serving officers there, and again, this is another if by Deputy Ward, he's saying that, yes, and he will address this in summing up, I believe. Of course, he's had conversations with the youth service, and they would like to use that. But he is aware that if another site magically appears, which is better suited for the youth service to come up with, and for me, it seems an obvious place. It's right across from the park in the centre of town. Then, of course, it can be freed up at a later date if necessary. But I just think the protestations from the Constable of St Helier on this particular one just ring slightly untrue to my ears, sir.
Yes, does anyone wish to speak on this amendment? If no other members should speak, I call upon Senator Mezek.
Thank you, sir. I think the point that's worth making is that this proposition, this amendment, has, I think, been born out of frustration in that Deputy Ward has been extremely active since his election to the Assembly, and since in the very early days of it he won his amendment to the Common Strategic Policy to secure a new youth and community centre for the north of St Helier, something which is desperately needed. I live in that area, and especially through lockdown and seeing other services being closed and people kind of stuck with things to do, it's I think been felt to an even greater extent that there does need to be something for young people in that area so that they can benefit from youth service support. But here we are, almost at the very end of this term, and we still haven't agreed to a site for it. And as we can see with the hospital debate, you really do need to get over that first hurdle before you can do other things, and it really leaves things in limbo until then. We have seen different iterations of different versions of a youth and community centre. I've sat in Andium's offices with Deputy Ward on numerous occasions to be presented with different options for that. The most recent one being the brewery one, which is great. That would be fantastic if that goes ahead, so brilliant. Other versions included the Sanssouci building on the other end of the brewery site, which has since been allocated for a different purpose. That may well have been a good opportunity, but was lost. And I worry that the longer time goes on, the more opportunities will be lost, and we'll keep running around in circles and not actually commit ourselves to something, or a good idea strikes us, but because it hasn't fallen in the right part of the planning process, because we've got another part of the Bridging Island plan to come up in a few years as well, that a potential good idea won't be possible. So again, what Deputy Ward has come up with here is to safeguard the site in case it's needed, because it would be a very good youth and community centre if it was there. Fantastic location for it. The space is big enough. We've seen concept drawings from it, those of us in the area, that look like it could be a good idea. In terms of the supposed downsides from it, the car park has been mentioned. So until I was gratefully accepted onto the St Helier residence parking, which took me a significant amount of time to get onto it, I did occasionally try to secure a space in the Nelson Street car park, as it was relatively close to where I live, and it often is difficult to get a space there. It does have to be said that the ones who are queuing up round about 5 o'clock do tend to be the white vans, as opposed to residents in the area who are just trying to find space for their car. I think that car park could be lost because of the new spaces which are coming online underneath Anne Court. That was part of the benefit of the Anne Court proposals, was that there are going to be a significant number of parking spaces delivered there. So people will be able to park their cars just a short a short distance from that site, and it's a much greater number than those that are being lost, that could theoretically be lost at Nelson Street. And as Deputy Tadjer has very well explained, that there are other ways which you can find facilities for the Honorary Police in St Helier, and the Constable says he spoke to them and they were very clearly against moving. Well, of course they would be. Why would they want to move unless it was necessary? But if we can, if that becomes a necessary option, that will just be the democratic process. And I actually don't share the Constable's assumption that if this were proposed, there would be some mass unrest in St Helier over it. I think he's misjudging people's appetite there. I don't really think that many people in the community that I'm a resident of would be so opposed to having parish hall inquiries actually held at Parish Hall. And I think many would be extremely pleased to see a youth and community provision provided there, because the people who live in that area know how desperately it's needed and can often see, as they're walking around the area, how bored many of the young people often are at a loose end, rather than benefiting from youth service provision, which is what they could be doing. Sir, this doesn't tie our hands to providing this facility on the Nelson Street site, but it just leaves it open in case we need it. So what's the problem? Sounds all right to me, so I hope members will support the amendment.
Thank you, Senator. Does any other member wish to speak on this amendment? Deputy Guida.
Yes, sorry, I just have one question for the proposer, because I really don't understand this. You have a site that is not available, that's not going to be available, that doesn't want to be left by people who are in it, that doesn't have any other alternatives. So why say, oh, now we need to reserve it for second use, so that we force the government to choose some place somewhere? I mean, it's like saying, what about the Maritime Museum? We're not saying, the next use for the Maritime Museum, when they want to leave the building, is going to be for a youth center. That doesn't push anybody to do anything. So I can understand the principle, and I'm actually for the principle. I think this absolutely needs to be done. I don't understand why this particular building has been chosen as a hostage, since it's unbelievably unlikely that the people in it are ever going to leave. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Deputy. Deputy Morell.
Thank you, sir. I'd just like to pick up from Deputy Guida there, because Deputy Guida's highlighted the issue that's been concerning me. And I'd like to take it one step further, which is to say that actually my concern is that by zoning this particular building, the Deputy may find it harder to get his youth centre, because I think Deputy Guida's right. We've heard from the Connétable of St Helier that the Honorary Police aren't going anywhere anytime soon. And so there is quite possible that the argument will be made, but we're not going to give you a youth centre somewhere else because you've got the old fire station zoned as a youth centre. And with the Honorary Police being there, nothing will happen. So I am concerned that actually this could work against Deputy Ward, who I know has fought valiantly for 4 years. And I understand, when he was calling himself naive, thinking that he'd got it in the common strategic policy and therefore it would happen. I believe that too. I shared, as new members, I think I shared the Deputy's naivety, thinking that it's in there, so it will happen. But I am concerned that actually this could backfire on the Deputy, and I would ask him to consider that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Deputy. Does any other member wish to speak on this amendment? I call upon Deputy Ward to reply. Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. I'm glad no one else spoke, because I've got something clear in my head from the last two speakers, and I've got to get this right. I thank Deputy Guida and Deputy Morell for that. This proposition, this amendment, is to say the alternative development of this site will not be allowed, apart from being a youth facility. But if something else comes up as a youth facility, it will not be needed. Now, I can answer as well the Constable of St Saviour at the same time. The brewery site is, I've seen plans for the brewery site as a youth facility, but it's not been agreed. If that happens, we will not use Nelson Street as a site. Therefore, this amendment is unnecessary and you'll never have to use it. because it's in the worded amendment. However, if that doesn't happen, and there is no certainty, there hasn't been certainty for years, and as Senator Mezek said, we had the one site, I've seen plans for Springfield, I don't know how many plans we've seen, perhaps the Senator can indicate, I think it's 5 different sets of plans, Springfield here, and one of the reasons, Deputy Guida, that I've put this forward, and I don't think it is a hostage, I'm not expecting someone to pay for it, one of the reasons I've put this forward is because their plans have been produced for this site for a youth facility and discussed. There have been plans for this site, Brewery Street, Springfield, the Sala buildings, I think it's called. The old gas showroom was considered, but that has gone. And what has happened over the last few years is gradually they've been eroded away. Apart from the Brewery Street, which is there and available, should it be agreed, because that is a genuine real site, and the Nelson Street site, which is there and available, should it be rezoned, and we say that that is available to us to build, and the plans are there. Now, in terms of the honorary police, I understand the issue from the constable about the honorary police, and what I didn't like from the constable of St Helier is this assumption that because we're daring to suggest that the honorary police need to be part of this change, that we don't respect the work they do. That's just unfair. I see the honorary police as well. I know the guys in the area. We chat all the time. My ex-student's dad, to be honest, we chat all the time. I understand the work that goes on. It's not about that. That is a side issue, sir. This is about facilities in that area. And so let's look at it the other way. If we don't build something and we don't get another site, we will have nothing. And if we have nothing, the issues are going to grow and grow and grow. And then the honorary police will have their site, but they'll be dealing with more and more and more issues in that area. And it's going to be, and when we come back to this assembly at some time and say there's an emergency situation in St Helier. So what I'm saying is if we rezone this and have it as a backup site, if the Brewery Street doesn't work and the plans are there and the money's there, then it gives us the opportunity to actually produce this facility. So I genuinely believe that if the honorary police enter into a proper discussion over this and see the benefits, because they're intelligent people who can look at the benefits for their society, their area, that's why they commit their time to the area to try and improve it. And so there are sites in St Helier. I know that the honorary police had a tour of Lamott Street with the CEO of St Helier, and not with the constable, and had that tour to say this is a possible site that you could use. And what this needs again, and I've said it before, I'm going to say it again, it needs leadership. It needs leadership from the deputies in the area, I'm doing that. From the constable, he's not doing that because he's opposing this. To say, look, we need this facility, this is one site, and if this was to happen, we are going to need to make a change. I will offer you these facilities. The parish hall inquiry, as succinctly and wonderfully put by Deputy Talia, I think is a side issue. There are plenty of places to have parish hall inquiries, the parish hall being one of them, for example. And so I just think we're clutching at straws in some of the arguments here. So it is, Senator Mezek said, I think this comes out of, I can't remember his words, frustration. Absolutely, sir. This is a frustration of 3.5 years of agreement. 3.5 years of being told, oh, there is something, don't worry about that. Oh, no, that one's gone. Oh, there is a plan. Look at these plans. Oh, they're wonderful. Great, let's go for it. Oh, no, that one's gone. Oh, but there's these plans for Nelson Street and the Brewery Street. That's great. Let's go with those. Andium, thank you. Brilliant. Let's get on with it. Oh, but we're not sure. There's always an obstacle in the way. And so I have to say, and I'm quite willing to make the difficult decisions and bring the difficult things forward, which may affect me at the ballot box. You know what? So what? I have to stand on the principles I believe in. And the principles I believe in is we should be providing facilities for our young people in that area to make the lives of people in the area that I stand up and represent in this assembly, for voices that perhaps don't have a voice, to make their lives better. And I believe that this facility will make their lives better. And so I would say this. When the comment from the constable about what message are we giving to the honorary police, the message we're giving to the honorary police is, look, we know you're going to have a big problem in the future if you don't get on with something, but the Assembly's agreed the money. And we've got plans here. And what we need you to do is we need you to be involved with that, find another facility, perhaps a newer facility that will be better for you anyway. And we want you to support this because you're going to have a better role in the future because of this facility. And I'll ask the Constable this. What message are we sending to the youth service? I'll tell you what the message is we're sending to the youth service in St Helier. When things go badly wrong, can you step in and help us out a little bit? When there's problems in Millennium Park, which have been repeatedly, and I believe they're spreading to other areas, I was having a discussion with Deputy I earlier about a different area, can you help us out? Oh yes, we'll bring the bus down. We've got to find the keys for the gates, and this is a genuine situation that arose. I couldn't get in the park because there was no keys for the gates, but we've sorted that out. And then we'll help you with young people in the area. But don't expect us to build your youth facility, even though the Assembly has agreed the money. And sir, let's be honest, agreeing money in this place is not always easy, but we've done it. So what are we going to do? We're going to say to the youth service, we'll use you when we want to, but other than that, just step back and just wait for it. So that's the wrong message. And it's the wrong message to young people. There is one way in which you get young people on side. And what you do is you value them. And you say to young people, you have a value to us and we're going to invest in you. But with that investment and that value comes a responsibility for you to be part of our society as well. And when you do that with young people, they will inevitably step up to the plate and be those wonderful young people that we see all of the time in our society. And that's what we need to be doing here. And this amendment is a simple one. It says we're going to protect this area as a fallback. And it's basically saying to us, get on with it. You've talked enough. You've agreed enough. But now get on with it. And the obstacles of a few parking spaces, and I'm willing to talk to the residents there and take that on the chin and say, look, sorry guys, look, this is the reason we're doing this. And there's Ann Street around the corner and there are parking spaces there. And actually the vans that do park there, and Senator Meswick has a point, you know, to park overnight with work vans, and I know they've got to park it somewhere, they've got to do something. Well, why haven't we got a more coordinated approach from the parish to say, look, we know we've got a lot of work vans here, where can we put them? Is there somewhere out of town we can put them and people come in and make it easy? It's never been addressed. So we're not putting cars first. We're not putting the honorary police first. We're putting children first. And if we don't put that first, our future is not as bright as it should be. So I'd say to members, if you're erring on the side of caution, please don't. Please support this. This gives the opportunity for something to actually happen. I've accepted it's probably not going to happen before June. I've had to take that on board. I've spoken about it. I've spoken to my therapist, which is another party member, but she's not here at the moment. She's not very well. And I've accepted it. I've come up with that acceptance. But what I won't accept is it's not going to happen in the next term, whoever is representing, and I hope it will be me because I want to see this through. So I urge members to vote for this and I call for the appel.
Thank you, Deputy. The appel has been called for. Members are invited to return to their seats. Those joining the meeting via the Teams link may cast their votes in the chat channel. I'll ask the greffier to open the voting for members in the chamber. All members have the opportunity of casting their votes. Then I ask the greffier to close the voting. can announce the amendment has been adopted. 33 votes for, 10 votes contra.
We have the 10.
Yes.
Those voting contra in the chamber, the Conotab of St Brelard and Deputy Guida. And in the chat, the Conotab of St Helier, Senator Lafondre, Senator Gorst, Senator Ferguson, Deputy of Grouville, Deputy Ash, the Conotab of St Saviour, Conotab of Trinity.
The next is the 95th Amendment, lodged by the Minister of the Environment, and I ask the Greffier to read the amendment.
After the words "the Draft Island Plan 2022 to 25, insert the words "except that" within policy CI5, Sports, Leisure and Cultural Facilities. A, at point 3, the words "or increases" should be deleted, and after the words "used by the public," there should be inserted the words "or increases the proportion of freely accessible public green space." B, after Southwest St Helier Planning Framework Area, there should be inserted 6 FB Fields, La Grande Route de Saint Clement. C, after the words Southwest St Helier Planning Framework Area, there should be inserted the words "the development of sports and leisure uses may also be supported in the identified sports and leisure area of potential, St Peter, but only where the public benefit and contribution to the viability and success of local sports can be proven to outweigh any loss or harm to the landscape and agricultural land." D, the Draft Island Plan 2022 to 25 should be further amended in such respects as may be necessary consequent upon the adoption of paragraphs A to C. E, the Draft Bridging Island Plan Proposals Map, Part A, Planning Zones, be amended to reflect the adoption of B and C.
Minister.
Thanks, sir. I think we've got as far as page 235 in the plan, community infrastructure. This is a straightforward amendment, hopefully. As a result, this is an amendment, one of my consolidating ones, which was done sort of after looking at the various members' amendments, areas where we knew there needs to be some change. And so there are 3 sets of changes. Just to explain what this policy is, this is C15, Sports, Leisure and Cultural, and it deals with what the current island plan provides for where large-scale sports and leisure facilities will normally receive consent. It lists down a number of areas. We are making a number of changes to it. So Part B corrects an omission where FB Fields was omitted. FB Fields St Clement, that needed to be added in. And if members look at the back page of my proposition, you'll see a couple of drawings there. Appendix 1 shows the area that includes. Also, at the end of the list, there is Part C, adds to that list of sites an area of what the team have called a sports and leisure enhancement area in the St Peter area. And I have to say, this is absolutely not a zoning. This is not zoning any fields. This is not a planning application. This identifies an area which is in the approximate area of the rugby club and those members that know the Strive Fitness Centre. That's that large development as you go from the St Peter roundabout through to the airport on the left after the rugby club. In that area, the land being spoken about is at the to the south of that, and again there's no field numbers, although there are field mentions mentioned there. You'll see a yellow blob. This is absolutely not a zoning of those fields. The proposition C says that it identifies an area of potential to the south of Strive, but the policy is very, very explicit that anything that is done there could only happen if where the public benefit and the contribution to the viability and success of local sport can be proven to outweigh any loss or harm to the landscape and agricultural land. So if you like, it's a bit like an area, it is identifying an area of potential for the future for the, and we will, I think, see what happens, but there is a very, very severe proviso put on that area. I think where on that last one, that particular one, is supported, as I understand it, by both Jersey Sport and Strive in representations. I've read a number of comments by the sports aficionados in that area who are very, they said they were encouraged by this, but of course there's a lot of work to do and the need has to be proven and the case has to be made before it would go anywhere. The kind of potential that was spotted is the potential benefits, particularly the development possibly of netball courts, where there does seem to be an identified need. And Senator Pallett will be pleased to know that this is some area where there is an expectation that private investment would be made. Dare I say it? So this is, well, we've had that debate, which would reduce the pressure on government to fund and develop these facilities somewhere else. So I think that's the right way to approach it, particularly in line of fact that the island has got a sports strategy. We're big on sports and there is a need for active lifestyles and so on. I have to say, I'm not a great area of sports myself. I don't think I probably ever was. So I'll bow absolutely to those sports aficionados. And maybe we'll hear from Senator Pallett later. Part A, I glossed over that one. That is a change to just a little change to respond to the amendment that Deputy Ward put in about the Springfield, because Springfield obviously is one of those areas of large-scale sports, to adopt his wording so that Springfield maintains and increases the amount of freely accessible green space. And of course, the more public open space we can protect and deliver, the better, sir. So with those, I think this is very, very straightforward and hope there won't be a long debate on it and we can get on to perhaps some of the more contentious items later. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Is the amendment seconded?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak on the amendment? Deputy St Martin.
So I won't be long, but I just rise to support the Minister with this, specifically the St Peter's site. When I was Minister, I tried my level best to get some initiative working on the site. I am absolutely delighted that the current Minister now has something to put in front of us. I have been to Strive, I've spoken to them about their plans for the future. I'm going to talk more about them when I get to my own amendment in a couple of debates' time to talk about cricket. But I am hugely enthusiastic about what they're doing. They share my vision for the future and they get my full support, so I'll support the Minister on this one. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Deputy. Does any Conatable St Brelard?
Thank you, sir. I'm cognizant of the need for providing sports facilities and certainly would be supportive of that, but I think we must also be aware of the visual effect of what we see has appeared on the Avenue de la Reine Elisabeth, and truthfully we're moving from green to almost industrial, if you can call sports that. So I think we, the planning department need to take very great care that we don't become just a suburban area surrounding the airport. There have been poor planning decisions on the other side of the road in terms of a large English-style garage. Let's not see a repetition of that sort of thing. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Conatable. Does any other member wish to speak on this amendment? I call upon the Minister to reply. Minister.
Thanks, sir. I'm grateful for the Deputy St Martin's support. I was persuaded this. I suppose I should have declared, I do apologise, an interest is that I'm a member of the Jersey Rugby Club, but I don't play, I just sit in the stand and enjoy it like everybody else. So hopefully I'm allowed to carry on speaking, sir. Have I? Yes. Thank you very much. But I don't go to Strive. So, no, seriously. I think Constable St Brelard makes a good point. about the could change. You know, these large-scale facilities do have the potential to dramatically change landscape and the character of an area, particularly when they're sited in very close to roads and so on. I think myself, my personal view about that, I have to say it wasn't the decision to allow that development. The first time I saw it go up, I thought, my word, that's big. How did that get there? And I was told this was a decision of the planning committee. The planning committee made a decision which they're fully entitled to do to depart from policy. So it was, we've heard all about the joys of being on the planning committee, but there we are. That's where we've ended up. And of course, it does look, though, as if that is proving to be a good asset to the island in all sorts of ways, not just domestically, but in terms of our international presence and so on. And I have to say, from a planning point of view, if you're going to have that sort of facility, I do think it's sensible to put it close to where we have really decent roads and road access. It's also sensible to put it near the airport, so that when people can get in and out to visit the facility, and it's also sensible to have all the sort of facilities and the bus routes to be able to get people on that site and off it. So I think, you know, that was my planning sort of impressions, not being party to the decision, but I think how far that develops in the future, I think will be very much for the sports community, for the Environment Minister, the next Environment Minister, and indeed those who pick up whatever government roles in developing the sports strategy forward, and indeed the planning committee in this assembly. But I think it is important that we have that flagged up in the plan. And from my point of view, it's quite important when we go, as Deputy St Martin will not like this very much, it's quite important that when we go on to discuss the next item, because where you site these facilities, I think that our major facilities are very, very important. So I make the proposition. Thank you. Call for the appel.
The appel has been called for. Members are invited to return to their seats. Those joining the meeting via the Teams link are asked to cast their votes in the chat channel and ask the greffier to open the voting for members in the chamber. All members for the opportunity of casting their votes. Then ask the greffier to close the voting. I can announce that the amendment has been adopted unanimously, 41 votes for. Now move on to the 73rd amendment lodged by Deputy St Martin, and ask the greffier to read the amendment.
After the words "the Draft Island Plan 2022-25," insert the words "except that." A. The following should be inserted within the list of sites to be designated as sports and leisure enhancement areas at Policy CI5, Sports, Leisure and Cultural Facilities. 6. Field MN 727, St Martin, 0.99 hectares, 5.5 verges. B. The Draft Island Plan 2022-25 should be further amended in such respects as may be necessary consequent upon the adoption of paragraph A. And C, the draft bridging island plan proposals map part A, planning zones, should be amended to reflect the adoption of paragraph A.
Deputy St Martin.
Thank you, sir. And here we are back in St Martin again with another specific use on a specific site. Before I get into the detail, though, sir, can I just share with members and it comes on from the last amendment, which we supported unanimously, a vision for Jersey. A vision that has Jersey as a centre of sporting excellence, not just in the Channel Islands or in the UK, but in Europe, and actually even wider than Europe in a global sense. And why do I say that? I say that because when you look at what's been happening at the other end of the island in St Peter, at Strive, where we've just been talking about, you can see what can be done. So we have had, will continue to have, and especially next year with the Rugby World Cup in France, visiting sportsmen and women and teams of the very, very highest world-class calibre visiting the island to use the facilities at St Peter and enjoy and make use of our fantastic countryside beaches. Strive has catapulted us to the top of the tree when it comes to sports training facilities. And here, with my amendment, is another feather that we can put in our cap when it comes to developing our island as a destination for world-class sports people and sports teams. And so there is a vision here that complements the vision at St Peter. But sir, this proposed facility is not just about those at the pinnacle of their careers. It's as much about those who are just starting out and everybody in between those two extremes. So we are signed up to improving islanders' well-being, mental and physical health, and we know that staying fit keeps you healthy both in body and in mind. We also know, sir, that organised facilities outside of school time reduce antisocial behaviour, and so here with this amendment we have a health and social benefit that we can take at the same time. But let's talk briefly about the cricket and the success story that has been the Farmers Field since 2003 when it first came into use. And I have to say to members, in those days I was a farmer, and I can remember ploughing, planting and growing crops in fields which have now turned into what was then Farmers Fields and is now the Farmers Field as a cricket ground. We now, sir, see matches played here from local junior teams right up to international competitions, and members have a list in the appendix at the end of this amendment of the international teams that have played in St Martin. But sir, this amendment is about taking the current facility to the next level and provide an indoor venue for matches and training that can be accessed 12 months of the year. Let me be clear with members, I would not have bought this amendment had the independent inspector not said this, and I quote, "The site is the logical place for such a facility, being adjacent to the existing cricket ground, which provides an excellent facility for cricket in the island. The proposal is supported by International Cricket Council, and the ground has provided a venue for international teams to compete against the Jersey team. Secondly, the hearing was told that alternative arrangements for existing indoor sporting facilities at Fort Regent are being sought, as Fort Regent is not ideal for indoor sports. In our view, these factors outweigh the Minister's objection. The proposal would provide a privately funded, desirable facility in a logical location. In reaching our view, we have taken into account the active Jersey strategy and the aim in the draft Bridging Island plan to ensure a broad range of high-quality facilities for sport in the island." So, sir, Jersey cricket is on a high at the moment and has been for a while, and our team are representing us magnificently overseas. But, sir, this is about encouraging our young people to aspire to be the next Jersey cricket team. And as with Strive, I envisage this new facility, should it happen, will allow for a large amount of public and educational access at no cost to become a real centre of excellence for all, not just locals, but internationals as well. Sir, this would be a multifunctional sports venue with health and well-being facilities, It would encourage more physical activity and go a little way to get us to our aim of increasing physical activity by 10% before 2030. Also, sir, at a time when Fort Regent is being taken out of action, here is somewhere that an opportunity for us to put something back. I'm going to stop there, sir, but I'd ask members to share with me my vision for Jersey as a destination of international sporting excellence and at the same time a facility for all locals to enjoy and benefit from. And I make the proposition and look forward to the debate. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Deputy. Is the amendment seconded? Thank you. Does any member wish to speak on the amendment? Deputy Pamplin.
Thank you, sir. I will start with a declaration of interest. I love cricket with everything in my being, and I love this amendment too, because for me personally, the success of the Jersey cricket team, and I would also add the Jersey Nets women's netball team, completely under the radar of the success and well-being, because they do not have the level of support that the incredible success of the Jersey Rugby Club, and long may that continue as well, that they've had. The fact that they've achieved that when I used to take my son to play cricket in the nets at FP Fields and see the deteriorating state of them is an even more incredible achievement. And I believe the Deputy is quite right. For me, sport should be accessible for everybody, wherever you are on the island. They've proven that across the island. So I just think on that, I know I'm a little bit biased, but I will be voting with the Deputy on this one. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Deputy. Conataba, St Martin.
Thank you, sir. I'm delighted to follow Deputy Pamplin and hear how supportive he is of this amendment. As a constable of the parish in question, I feel it's necessary for me to comment on this amendment, and I've been asked by several members what my thoughts are. The views I've received from parishioners have been balanced. Some have been very sceptical and cross, and some have been extremely supportive of the proposed site. I myself am uncertain on whether I can support it based on...
Sir, I'm very sorry to interrupt my constable, but I'm really struggling to hear her because I have a lot of chatter going on in the back here.
Yes, I think there's no harm in members exchanging a word with the people sitting next to them, but there have been times today when there have been 5 or 6 conversations going on all over the chamber. So I'm not singling out anyone. There have been conversations all over the place, and it's been quite difficult for members to speak, I imagine. So perhaps members can bear that in mind when they decide whether or not to communicate with the people sitting next to them. Yes, thank you, Deputy, for raising that. Conatable of St Martin.
I'll start again with that sentence. The views I've received from parishioners have been very balanced. Some have been very sceptical and cross, and some have been extremely supportive of the proposed site. I myself am uncertain whether I can support this based on the information provided, and I will say that I'm erring more on the side of voting poor than conch. Further, the Minister for the Environment has outlined his view in his post-consultation that he does not consider it appropriate to designate this land for a new sports and leisure facility due to its unsustainable location and the significant harm that such a facility would have on the character and nature of this rural area, including agricultural land. And as Constable, I cannot ignore this concern. I agree this is prime agricultural land, and the owner has sheds adjacent to this field, which I believe would be better to convert into an indoor cricket facility. However, this has not been put forward. I note the report of the inspectors that we should accept this amendment on the grounds that this is a logical site and that the lack of opportunity to provide alternative facilities at Fort Regent outweighs the Minister's objection. Now, the amendment talks extensively about the positive contribution this amendment will make to improving islanders' mental and physical health and the success of cricket in the island. However, as the Minister's comments have noted, there is no nearby primary or secondary sporting centres nearby. It appears instead to be a small private facility with little additional information provided about how it would function, how the facilities would be accessed by the public. There's no clear outline of what discussions there have been between the applicant, the proposer, and the Minister for Economic Development over how the facilities can be used to further the development of cricket on the island, particularly in relation to how schools can use it. Indeed, the facility is only a few minutes' walk away from St Martin's School, and I would welcome clarification from the Deputy as to whether he's spoken to teachers from the school regarding the use of the proposed facilities. I'd further welcome clarification over whether discussions are being held over ensuring that discounts would be provided to schools. Cricket, there's no question, is a highly regarded sport in Jersey. And as the Deputy has so elegantly outlined, one of the island's great success stories. However, if we want to truly develop cricketing skills in Jersey, we need to ensure that the public is able to fully benefit from the new facilities, and children and young people are guaranteed and encouraged to use cricketing facilities available to train and learn without facing high costs. We need guarantees that this is not just a private gym wearing leg guards. I'm all for excellent sporting facilities, but any proposed sporting facilities brought to the Assembly as part of the Island Plan should be clearly accessible to all members of the public and not risk depleting agricultural land without clear details on its use and operations. And the amendment does not have these. Overall, I have had this one as well as actually caused me sleepless nights, because I can see that Farmers Field is an amazing world-renowned cricket field, and I just would like a bit more information. If the Deputy Minister for Economic Development is able to offer insight into the concerns raised, then I'd welcome it. As I've already said, the Farmers Cricket Grounds is indeed a marvellous facility enjoyed by locals and visitors, and I would like to support this, but do need to be convinced that a green field should be converted to an indoor facility. And I ask again, why have the owner's sheds not been put forward for conversion? Thank you.
Thank you, Conrad. Deputy Ash.
Thank you, sir. I suppose I almost ought to declare an interest here, sir, because I love sport. I have always loved sport. It's very much been my life. It probably still is my life. This is more of a bit of a sideline I'm doing here, I think, compared to sport. And I think it just offers children a chance to dream as well. I think it gives everybody escapism, if you like. I can remember actually, so when I was young and dreaming of a great sporting career, where I took my brand new school Clydella white shirt and redecorated the left-hand side of it using a felt tip and painted on a nice red rose with a green stem before going out into the garden to play for England, and then being subject to rather violent abuse from a pitch invader, namely my mother. But I digress, sir. The reason I mention this right to dream is when Strive opened, Ben Harvey, the proprietor, for want of a better word, of Strive, he made a fantastic point in my book where he said, if we provide top facilities for people, particularly youngsters in the island, they have a chance to aim at the top. He said, at the moment we have children, I played against Guernsey, and as he said, that's great. If you want to aim to play in a Marathi or something, that is fantastic. But when children are 8 or 9, they should be aiming at winning an Olympic gold medal. That's the dream. They should be aiming to play for Liverpool, play for England at rugby. If we provide those facilities, they have that dream and that opportunity. And we're slowly seeing people like Serena Guthrie, who were given an opportunity and have gone through to achieve that, sir. We saw in the UK, our Olympic performances were absolutely shocking, if you remember back. So really awful. Until the lottery funding came in, we provided people with the facilities, and it has revolutionised Team GB at the Olympics. The other thing, so we have here, sir, the ability now to provide a first-rate cricket facility. One of the great games. As Neville Cardus, I think, described it as the epitome of the team game. I think he described it as the finest game that the wit of man has ever invented. There would be some who disagree from other sports, but that was what Neville Cardus said. What we are seeing, though, with cricket, partly because of equipment and things, is certain grounds are no longer suitable. And from what I hear, we may well see that FB fields for adult cricket soon, particularly if a cycle track is put in there, will no longer become suitable. Now, one, I think that will be a great shame if that is the case. But if it is the case, we have to try and give something back to cricket. It's all very well putting cycle paths all over the place, but we have to give something back to cricket. If we're taking it away from them in one place, we have to give it back to them in another. And what better way to put it back in an indoor facility that could be used all year round for young boys, young girls, to get involved in what is still a wonderful sport and really provide a great facility for the island, and also provide an indoor facility when we are now, and as Deputy Lou said, we are hosting world-class competitions now, ICC competitions. And if it rains, there's not a lot to do. But if you've got an indoor practice facility for these teams, it'll encourage people to come here even more. I can't stress strongly enough, sir, that we should back this and provide a great facility for the island going forward. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Deputy. Deputy Wickenden.
Thank you, sir. I remember being on the planning committee when Strive came forward for their planning application. And I want to use it in comparison to this, because like this, the facility was on greenfields, agricultural fields, but not very good agricultural fields, actually quite poor agricultural fields. It was right next to, turn my volume down. It was right next to the bowling alley and the rugby club, and it was across the road from the airport. And it wasn't going to suddenly sit out of place in what was already quite a built-up area. What we're asking here, and this is where I struggle, and I'm glad the Constable of St Martin's mentioned the sheds, which is, this is about building a big site that I absolutely agree would be fantastic for cricket and fantastic for the school nearby, and islanders, but we're asking to use what's actually very good agricultural land in a really rural area to put a big sporting facility right bang in the middle of it. And where Strive, when they came with their planning application, they came to rezone the land during a planning application. They came with the support like this one has, the Minister for Sport and Jersey Sport, that they had also engaged with education to make an agreement that this facilities once made would be used for young islanders in their education, and they were opening up and making a fixed arrangement with education so that their facility will be used free of charge by the education department so schools could go there and use the top class facilities. And this is where I have a problem with this one. We're coming together with in a Bridging Island plan to rezone this land, and we're not seeing the whole picture. And as the Constable of St Martin has said as well, is where's the discussions? We can't see everything that's happening here. What will it look like? Who will it actually support? If this site wanted to be rezoned, it should come with a full business case, and we should know, like they did for the Strive building, we should know in advance what all of those arrangements are, and that they've been had or they're signed, so that we could understand what the loss of what this prime agriculture in a really rural area would do for the island and what it looks like. The sheds, I think that's a great idea from the Constable, where it sits back further out the way in a place that's already got buildings on, rather than putting it here. And for that, I can't support this as an island plan amendment. I would like to see what the plans look like in a planning situation, but I think this is the wrong place to make this decision by the Assembly, because we just don't have the level of detail that we want. As much as it would be good for cricket, as much as it would be good for sport, is it the right spot? And that hasn't been proven, that this is absolutely the right spot and that all the right outcomes will be there. And for that reason, I cannot support turning this greenfield into a sports centre in this way that it's been done. There is a facility to get that to happen, but it needs to be with more information. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Deputy. Deputy Labby.
Yes, I remember the planning application for the Strive gym very well. And I went to visit it the other day, and I met going in. I went for breakfast, actually, not to go to the gym. They do a very good full English. I must tell the Planning and Environment Minister he should visit. I was met by the proprietor, and he went, "Oh, Russell, I've been trying to get hold of you. I need to talk to you. I want to take you round." And so I went on the tour, and he reminded me that it was me, actually, who turned a corner for him in that application, because it was recommended for refusal by the department, and they didn't like the business case, thought it was too ambitious. It was a kind of build it and they'll come kind of business plan, and they didn't reckon people would come, and various other planning considerations. And so there were a lot of glum faces around, and I remember saying, I like it. And this land that we're standing on is not great land. It's some of the worst in terms of productivity, agricultural productivity, because it's not long before you hit bedrock. And I thought, and it spelled out the plans that the Education Minister was talking about for schools, and that is happening. And so I was a bit like the 12th juror in 12 Angry Men, 13th juror in 12 Angry Men. Gradually, the other members of the committee, and I remember the next person who said, yeah, I like it too, was the late Deputy Richard Rondell, and so on and so forth. And eventually the committee went with this scheme, and it was built. And of course, they did come. The Lions came twice. And it's frustrating to have this, make this speech at the moment, sir, because I know that a lot of members won't know what the next plans are for the development, and it's not my place in this forum now to divulge those, because that's up to the Strive people to make those announcements when they want to. But it's very, very exciting. And I really hope that people are going to get behind them, because they have proved that it can be done. It's all private money, ambitious plan, but it's working. And look who they're attracting. And with their plans, they're very certain that they will attract more Premiership, not only rugby clubs, but football, football clubs, soccer clubs, too, with the kind of hybrid pitch and the facilities that they want to put in there, and all sorts of other goodies. So that's tremendous good news, and I wish them all the best for the future. And if other members want to pop up and have a look at it and take the tour and understand what the plans are for the future, the proprietor will be only too happy to show them around. And so you don't need to, you can make an appointment or just pop up and see him. So that's just such good news for Jersey. So the next phase is very, very ambitious, but let's try to be positive about it, because I do think, we tend to be very sceptical and it's not going to happen here, but it can happen. They're proving it can happen, and it's such good news. Which brings me on to this application, this amendment, but I have to say we are veering here into the territory of planning application again. I've watched the farmers' fields grow. I enjoy the tweets about it, and I like cricket too. But my question to the proposer here is, does the indoor facility have to be next door to the pitch itself? And isn't the natural home for an indoor facility for the cricket in the new St Peter's Sports Hub to come, if all goes well? So I wonder if he could address that in his summing up. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Deputy. Conataba St John.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I believe that centres of excellence for sport should be encouraged. Cricket in Jersey and Farmers Cricket Club have done extremely well in supporting both youngsters and promoting the island on an international stage. Only in recent weeks we saw them representing the island in Spain. They're doing a great job, cricket, in involving women in sport, and I think that's to be applauded. We should also be applauding the owners for looking to invest, but also for the high standards they've demonstrated in their current facility. As we've heard, their current facility is already used for international matches, and I've no doubt that if they're successful, then this will also be held to a high standard. Sports facilities, in my experience, which is quite extensive, sir, not playing but managing, can be sold time and time again at the key times every day of the week. The challenge for sports facilities is throughout the day, and therefore you need to find revenue to make that work. I'm involved in 2 sports facilities. One has 28 different user groups. It provides facilities for all of those groups, but none of them are excellent, sir. It's about providing something for them. We're talking about something which is built for purpose, a sporting centre of excellence. Using the shed, sir, is the idea is applaudable, but the reality is, again, in my experience, when I've looked at that with other sporting areas, it's not realistic. If you were trying to provide a general facility, it may be feasible, but to provide a centre of excellence, you really do need to start from a blank sheet of paper. Today is about the rezoning. It's not a detailed application, and I'd ask the Deputy to give us some assurance about community use of the facility should it be rezoned. But overall, sir, I believe that we should get behind this. We've heard about the benefits of sports tourism, and I believe this is another string to our bow, and I wish them every success. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Conotab. Senator Pallett.
Thank you, sir. Lots been said about this is not the application, but a lot's been said about Strive. Strive was a long story, and I'm afraid some people have got some very short memories. And I'm not going to spend too long on Strive, sir, because that's not this application. But this is something that the proprietor won't say, but I'm going to say. The hoops and hurdles that gentleman had to jump over to get his centre through to the success it is now is totally unbelievable. I watched it almost on a day-by-day, week-by-week, and his patience with government, his patience with the planning system, his vision and his drive is second to none. And had it not been for that, we would not have Strive, and we wouldn't be talking about the Lions coming here and Premiership football clubs. But he stuck at it, and we should be applauding him for that, because, to be honest, there were times I thought he would throw the towel in because he got sick to death of some of the things he's being asked to do. And I'm not going to mention them because we're through that now. But somebody's mentioned, if you build it, people will come. And that's exactly what's happened. What St Peter's is the home of rugby. In my opinion, and I'm not universally thanked for this, I also think it could be the home for football. Not everybody agrees with me, but nevertheless, it could be. What it isn't going to be is the home of cricket. That's not where cricket's ever been based, and it won't be a cricket centre. I am going to support this because it is a rezoning of the land for sport and for cricket, and it's clear from the proposition what they would like to do on it. But this is not a planning. Again, I'm going to repeat myself from before. It's not a planning application. This is about rezoning. But there are some things I would like to see done before a planning application is. I'm going to support this because I think it's right to rezone it, but I think there are a couple of things that need to happen before it gets to the point of a planning application. Government is in the process of investing into Jersey cricket at Grainville and make the home of Jersey cricket Grainville, and that's absolutely the right thing to do. We do need more than one cricket centre in the island. The sport's on an up and up. Women's cricket is becoming increasingly popular, and there is a need for better facilities for cricket, the level they're playing at. Frankly, considering the size of the island population we've got is absolutely incredible, and long may that continue. But I think there does need to be some discussion between Farmers and Jersey Cricket about what centre offers what, and if it is to be an indoor centre at St Martin's, and I'm not saying that's a good or a bad thing, then I think that support, when it comes to planning application, it was mentioned about Strive. When that planning application comes, it needs to be with the support of Jersey Cricket, it needs to be with the support of Jersey Sport, it needs to be with the support of the Minister for Sport, whoever that might be at the time, and hopefully with the support of majority of states members. But they need to get their ducks in line, and they need to be clear about what they are offering and what they're intending to do, and it needs to be joined up thinking. So this is the first step. I would urge members to support this because it is a rezoning of the site. It's not the planning application. There's plenty of opportunity when they put the planning application in to put all the sorts of questions that were put to Strive at the planning application meeting. The right questions. I mean, people are always right to be dubious about people making promises and being able to deliver them. But we've got to have faith in people that are prepared to put their vision on the line, put their money on the line, because it is private investment, as it was at Strive, and we've got to have the confidence to back them. We're going to have to do it more and more moving forward around sport. I've mentioned it before. Some of the plans for the rugby club site and for Strive moving forward, I think would make this island a centre of sporting excellence, the like of there is nothing the like of in the UK, and we've got to grab that with every opportunity. Grab that as quick as we can and support the proprietor in his dreams, because there are benefits not just to sport, there are benefits to the island more generally of what he will at some point bring forward. But just specifically on this, we need to support this because it's the right thing to do now. Well, you know, he may come with a planning application at some point that is just not acceptable, and we'll deal with that when we get to that point. But this is about rezoning that land for cricket into sport, and I'm not going to go into all the benefits of sport. That's been well put together within the amendment. But I do urge members to support it and give the owner of Farmers Cricket Club, give the owner the support that he's looking for, and frankly he deserves for putting his neck on the line at times and putting his own money and investment into sport. Much of what he's done has got cricket in Jersey to where it is now, and I thank him for that, and we should all thank him for that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Senator. Deputy of Trinity.
Good afternoon, sir, and thank you. It gives me great pleasure. Hello. Have I got a double chat?
Sorry?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Yes.
Right, sorry. It gives me great pleasure to follow the senators and deputies that have just spoken. And it's so important that we get things in order. I have had great lengths of talk with the owner of the field. The one thing I didn't know about, because I haven't been in the States that long, was how the Farmers Field came about many years ago and how it worked. And what the owner is trying to do now is to bring everything together. I have said particularly, just to satisfy the Constable of St Martin's, that he must indulge himself in speaking to all the people concerned and what benefits will come back. But you see, that becomes a planning implication. But from my perspective, and can I just say on behalf of Education, Sport and Culture and the Minister for Education, Sport and Culture, we are very much appreciative of what the owner of the Farmers Field is trying to do. All the comments have been made about youth and everything else. And the one thing I will also say, it's a great opportunity with talking about housing and education and health, very important factors. But sport is becoming an important factor as well, in the sense that it keeps people off the street, and they provide so much of our facilities we must look at. The other thing is that we had the great dilemma, because I sit on the Fort Regent board, with regards to where sport was going to go and where we put them. We've started that at Springfield, and we're hoping to carry that on. And there is no doubt that we would love to see this happen at the Farmers Field. It's the thing about providing indoor facilities at Fort Regent, even with cricket, was difficult. But and the suggestion of going down to Farmers Field is not going down to almost into town. It is not viable, and I think that this application should be supported. It was very well put over by the deputy of St Martin's, and I think, as I said, followed through by so many other people. I'm just slightly concerned with some of the comments that was made by Deputy Wickington, where I'm not quite sure whether he's got the gist of the whole implication with regards to Strive and everything else. But then, as the previous speaker just said, I don't think that we should go down that route at the present time, because what we are talking about, removing and rezoning this for sporting facilities. I put my whole heart and soul behind it, and the other thing is that I think sometimes people do tend to forget that if people are going to put money into something, and it doesn't involve the state's involvement in financial implications, then I think that we have to look at it more often. And I think that in this particular case, it's next door to the Farmers Field where there is a cricket pitch, and the facilities there, is rightly said, almost world class. So it's very important that, as far as I'm concerned, that from the sporting aspect, and we're in charge of sport for the present time until obviously elections or whatever happens, I can only endorse the previous sports minister, who was totally behind the application. So can I just leave with you the thought that I think it still has to go to a planning application, as was said, but I think that this is an ideal situation where rezoning can be considered and should be looked at. And I will insist that everything that is required of by the individual or by the constable in St Martin's will be adhered to, and what benefits they feel will benefit this side of the island. So can I please ask you to just consider your views and consider voting for in this application, because I will, and Education, Sport, Culture will certainly support it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Deputy. Dr. Morell.
Thank you, sir. And I'm pleased we heard from the Sports Minister, though I would have heard him to be the person to speak after me, because I had a question which I was hoping he would answer. And that really was actually Senator Pallett raised it, which was duplication. I am concerned because there is activity going on at Grainville with the view to creating better cricket facilities at Grainville. And I completely agree with sport, the good it does. I think in his opening speech, Deputy St Martin was absolutely right to talk about, and I believe this was the case in the 80s and 90s, etc. If you believe you can't get there, if you believe you can't be world class, if you don't have that dream when you're 8, 9 years old, then you won't be. And in the 80s and 90s, when I was growing up, it was just take you off from Jersey, you're not going to be world class when it comes to sport. And it's the same, I'm trying to get that through the arts and culture strategy as well. That we can be, as far as our human talent is concerned, as fantastic as anybody else, as any other jurisdiction. So, but I am concerned about duplication because we are only 100,000 people, and I find it hard to believe that we would need one centre of excellence for cricket in St Martin and another centre of excellence for cricket almost due south in St Saviour. And so, one is almost certainly enough for the island, I'm sure. Speaking as though it were something of a planning application, there is an issue there for traffic, because this isn't, we have been talking about this as a cricket facility, but the report in the proposition clearly also states about uses other sporting facilities such as gymnasium and other health and well-being activities. And so that is going to be, and the Connétable of St Martin really needs to think about that, that's going to mean quite an increase in traffic in that particular part of the island. And and I don't know how much that's been taken into account. And of course, the planning application should deal with that. And talking now about Strive and planning applications, I saw Mr. Harvey probably last month. It was had a really good tour, and everything that Senator Pallett and others have said about Strive is absolutely correct. It's a superb facility. But me being me, and never want to miss the opportunity to be direct with someone if I can, I did point out that it was one of the ugliest buildings in Jersey. And when you fly into the airport, and this is what brings it, I came back in August from a week away from the island, and I flew in. I was kind of, what's that incredibly ugly building down there as I'm coming into land? Oh, it's Strive. And so I did mention that to Mr. Harvey and did say it's a wonderful...
I should say, Deputy Morell, other members have been very careful not to name the person you've just named twice.
Oh,
bearing in mind Standing Order 104, it's not necessary to name him.
I'm not the first person to name him in this particular thing. That's why I named him. Somebody else did previously.
The first person that I've been conscious of, the other members have been very careful
Senator
not to.
Pallett mentioned him.
Well, perhaps you could try and avoid doing
and that was the only reason Senator Pallett had mentioned the name. That was why. Right. So anyway, the Strive facility, it's it's not, sports halls are not attractive facilities from the outside. We had this at next to Holia. I'm trying to think what the name of the field is, where the planning application for the sports facility at Holia got knocked back, first of all, before being accepted. And so when it comes to the design of this sports facility, I think, given that this will be in a very rural area, I think there's going to have to be some very careful thinking about the way it looks. And actually, whilst we're talking about Strive, sir, it also makes me think about Jersey Bowl, which is obviously just next door, effectively. And that, as a sporting facility, was built probably in the 1990s sometime. And it was obviously clad in granite and so on. It obviously is a leisure facility in many different ways, but it was made to try and fit in with that, at the time, slightly more rural element of the island. Next door, Strive has not gone down that route, and unfortunately from an architectural perspective, I don't think it adds anything to the area. In this area, a facility of this nature would need to be properly considered in terms of design. It must not and should not be just four walls and a roof, painted white, and in the countryside, sir. So I do say all those things because I believe I will be supporting this, but it is with that sense that the planning application that follows really will need to be properly scrutinised and not just accepted because we want the sporting facility. It's a sporting facility which needs to fit into the area, and it's a sporting facility which, will have to think about sustainable transport. If this is a gym that's operating day in, day out, then a large increase in traffic in St Martin's will occur. And there is no wonderful sustainable transport solution for bringing people from all over the island to St Martin's. So that's the sort of thing that's going to have to be thought about as well, sir. I do commend Deputy of St Martin for, he talked about vision, and I commend him for that because I think he's absolutely right. It was when he spoke about 8 or 9 year olds believing they can play for Liverpool. I think that was the line which sold me on this. That made me realise, yes, you do have to make people think in Jersey that they can achieve the best themselves. And so, yes, and unless I hear otherwise from somebody else, I think I almost certainly will be supporting this. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Deputy. Minister.
Thank you, sir. I held back because I thought it's important to let those who are strongly supportive of the community make the case. My job here is to assist the Assembly make decisions on how we allocate scarce land and make sure that the uses we allocate it for is in the right place. And I think those tests are vital. And so looking at the proposition here, we're talking about a field which is an agricultural field which is 5.5 verges. We could have been discussing this for 35 houses. That's the scale of what we're looking at here. 35 homes. And we have here a proposal which obviously the activities that are approved in 2003 when former Senator Pershard succeeded in gaining application for turning agricultural land into a cricket pitch. He did so, and that has been the case, and they've been very successful. And of course now, one of the features of such successes is they start off small and they grow. And of course I noticed that I think all the debate has been about a cricket centre. But of course when one reads the proposition, it's an indoor cricket and sports centre with associated health and fitness facilities. And those advocates have drawn comparisons with Jersey Strive, which is a huge facility. So are we really being asked to put a facility that size slap bang in the middle of the countryside, where there's road congestion getting to it from Five Oaks? Are we really going to have large scale, because this is what this is about, policy CI5, large scale sporting facilities in a location such as that? Are we really going to do that? Wouldn't it be right that we think, well, where else are we going to have sports facilities on the islands? Now, we haven't just got what I added earlier, because in my earlier amendment, the one that we approved, I didn't come forward and say we're going to zone these fields at St Peter for a Strive Mark II. I said we need to have a plan for seeing how the sports needs may be met in this area. Leaving the way open for a whole process of sports strategy work, working with the owners, and eventually a planning application. And here, I think Deputy Labby is right. And Deputy Wickenden is right. We are ineffectively a planning application. Just remind ourselves of the debate we had earlier. The proposition is brought to make it easier for the planning application to go through. Easier. Now, Senator Pallett said, well, all the hoops that they had to go through over St Peter, all the procedures, all of the, drove him mad, etc., all the tasks he was asked to do with the evidence. Now, isn't it right that where we give up agricultural land and we give up other possibilities for such a use, we go through those hoops? That's what the planning system does. Isn't it right? I'm getting shakings of heads. Well, I think absolutely, no, I'll disagree, Senator. Because the planning system can enable, where on exceptional basis, as the planning committee did in that case, and they went through the evidence, and you've heard from the chairman at the time, and the process they went through, they were uneasy about it. But these things are, in the end, the planning balance. But that was got after a number of stages had gone through. Here now we're saying, no, we're going to earmark this in the plan, we're going to put it in as a large-scale centre, alongside Lake Canaveral, alongside La Rocquiere, alongside FB Fields, alongside Springfield. We're going to give it that status. Because the difference is all those places have got good traffic connections. All of those places are, I think, more sustainable. So this is a rural area. Now, this is an area, I think it's pretty well the only one, that I absolutely broke company with what the planning inspectors said. The proposition lists the final comments of the inspectors, which says there were two reasons why they thought. Firstly, because it's next door to the cricket centre and supported by the International Cricket Council. I don't know whether the inspectors are cricket fans, I don't know. Maybe, I made no comment. But that's the first. And the second, I can understand that alternative arrangements for indoor sporting facilities at Fort Regent are not ideal. Well, I don't know what we're doing with Fort Regent, and I wish I knew where things are going, but my word, we do need to provide decent facilities. Now, I thought our sports plan, sports strategy, was to develop at La Rockiere, for example. I thought we were going to have, we were going to put sports facilities for the community, which is on main roads, close to urban areas, much more sustainable. I thought that was the plan. Also, I learned in this debate, I have to say I didn't know, we're going to do things at Granville for the cricket. So, of course, Granville is, well, it's in a urban location. There are traffic issues there, but I think there are less traffic issues there than potentially than in the middle of this location, in the middle of the countryside. So, I think really, and of course, the inspectors overrode those comments. They said I was right, but because it was next to the cricket pitch, and because Fort Regent was so poor, that's why I had to do it. And the other thing I noticed, Senator Pallett said, well, he told us, well, the strive to come, which is, as it were, a vision, won't include cricket. Well, where does that come from? I thought that's the whole point of having a centre.
Could I ask for clarification there, sir?
Yes, you can.
Two things. I didn't actually say that. What I said is I didn't expect it to be a centre for cricket. I said it could be a centre for rugby and football. I suggested it's not for me to make that decision. The Minister would agree that. And the other one was, as well, he also said that I said jumping through hoops and over hurdles in regards to planning. I didn't say that. I said that the proprietor had to jump through hoops and hurdles. I never mentioned planning. I just hope the Minister will agree that that I would accept he had to jump through hurdles from planning, but that's not the hurdles I was talking about.
On the first point, sorry, I apologise to the Senator, he was absolutely right. I didn't mean to misrepresent his words. I have written down on the planning side, he was sick to death. I don't know if I've written those words down, so...
But not on the planning side, it was other issues.
So, okay, but my point is that I think that going through the planning process of making your case, and defining your scheme and proving the need, where there's exceptional policies, where, in other words, you can have something as long as you do this, that's part of the planning system. And I think here we've got one that's come in sort of, almost sort of jump in that process. That was, I think, the point I was going to make. So the space of strategy, I thought we had a sports strategy. That's where I've got the difficulty here, because I'm not plugged in to all these bodies, Deputy at Trinity, he's on all these bodies. I don't know what their plan is. I would have hoped we would have got something a clearer strategy coming through into the Bridge and Island plan. But nonetheless, we've got a series of centres for development of sport, which is right. We need to do that. We've got a possibility of an expansion out west, and we've got those state centres on the east. Now, if they're not good enough, and they prove not good enough in the Bridge and Island plan, then it can be changed. Exceptional cases can be made. And so the planning system can do that. So I do question whether it's right to go this mile now. It's a Bridging Island plan for a smaller number of years. And so, our current policy is to try and locate those schools to large-scale sports and leisure facilities within primary, secondary, urban centres. Now, if it was small-scale, I think I would be less critical, because small-scale facilities, but this is clearly large-scale, because that's what the proposition being brought is. This is a rural location, and so I'm not able to support this. So I'm sorry to be a party pooper, sir, but there we are. I think it's my job to advise members and put members on caution. Just remember the zoning debate and the pain we've gone through with all those housing sites where, in the case of housing, we absolutely know there's a proven need. The pain we've gone through. And when we're asked to make decisions on other uses where we don't have the evidence of proven need, I put members on caution whether they should vote for this. I do not consider that this case is proven. Thank you.
So can I
Thank
ask
you,
for
Minister.
another point of clarification? It's a minor one.
Yes.
The Minister said that, I think his words were he didn't know about the sports strategy, or words to that effect. Would the Minister agree that his officers have been briefed on the sports strategy, and the Minister should be aware of the contents of the sports strategy?
Yes, sir. Well, apologies. I mean, me personally, I suppose, you know, when you're an environment minister, you are completely overloaded with work, and you know, you tend to allow people to get on with their business area. But what I've got here is the active places strategy. The plan makes provision for this in C15 or C15 through the inclusion of land at La Rocquia School. That's what it says. And I think probably I did say that. So there's a plan, and that's what it says. So I question, do we need something else that's not in the plan?
Thank you. Deputy Tadio.
Thanks, sir. So I've been going through some thoughts on this, and the first thing that I thought of is that we all know the story of creation, and that God made the world in 6 days, and he made different things on each day, and I don't propose to recount what they were, but obviously one of them was the separation of light and darkness, and then the fishes and the sea. And quite wisely, on the seventh day, he rested. And we're now in the seventh day of the island plan, and we haven't rested. And I think we're getting into a territory where late on the seventh day, we're risking making some dubious decisions, albeit for well-intentioned reasons, because let me talk us through why I think that. I think what we're trying to do here is, or some members are trying to fight a proxy cause. So they're identifying what's often happened in the past and saying, look, I'm in favour of sport. I think, I don't mind admitting a bit of banter, sir, because I don't mind receiving it, or I prefer to give it, of course, which is same on the sports field, although I've not been on one for quite a while, is that when I did hear Deputy Ash saying that he loved his sport, I shouted out, no, you love watching sport, like I do as well. And I'm sure he does like participating as well. And I think members are standing up saying, look, I support sport and I love cricket, therefore I'm supporting this proposal because I want to show my support for cricket, in the same way that I might want to do that instinctively for certain key areas that I like to support. So if there was a proposal on the table, I don't know, for somebody who wanted to build an art gallery in their field, or if they wanted to open up some kind of art house cinema in an appropriate location, but where they probably would struggle to get planning permission, I might be initially supportive if I thought, yeah, that's great, I love art house theatres, I love galleries, and I'd love it if there was an exclusive gallery, or even one that, as long as I could go to it, I don't really mind if anyone else could go to it, and if it showed, like, I don't know, contemporary modern art, I'd be there quite a lot, and I'd encourage people to go there. But it doesn't mean that the correct process is to bring an amendment to this Assembly and ask to the Assembly to make that decision. And I think I've had an epiphany moment, albeit on a day where I should be resting, is that the pennies finally dropped for me as to why these kind of amendments make me uneasy. And it's because normally it's the Assembly or the Minister in an island plan every 10 years, or in this case a bridging island plan which will last for 3 years, we effectively are telling people what they can and can't do with their land. So we're saying to you, you've got this field here, you can build housing on it, but it has to be affordable. Sometimes we do it much more generally than that, and it's less problematic because we do it in zones. We say, if you live in this particular zone, it might be the north of St Helier, it might be the green belt, for want of a better word, or a coastal national park. You can do this and you can't do that. And you have to abide by that. You might like it, you might not like it. It might benefit some people, it might disadvantage others, but those will all be proportional measures that we put in place, which we think are in the public interest for whatever particular legitimate outcome. And it could be to preserve a character of an area, it could be to provide much needed homes. What we have in this scenario is we have somebody who's a private individual who no doubt provides a great service, and I think some of us have even played in his cricket field because he was a former States member. And in the good old days when we used to have the States members cricket match, and we could muster a team, and more importantly, Guernsey could muster a team, and we would normally beat them, of course. But either way, we'd have a great day out. And sometimes we would play at the Cricketers, sometimes we'd play in Guernsey. So I do appreciate the support that individual and that the Cricketers gives to the sport and provides as a facility for the island. But it comes back to the point, we have an individual who says, I want to do this with a particular field. So he then finds a willing States member, as is his right, and other members of the public can do that. And then that States member will say to the Assembly, I think we all should tell this person what they should put on their land. And so we have this contrived situation where we say, you know what, if I can get everybody to agree, let's tell that person that he has to build a sports facility in that field over there. And then, of course, what happens? He's like, oh, go on then. If you really insist, I suppose I'd better do it, see as you've told me to do it. And of course, he puts in a planning application. And the planning committee has to effectively pass that unless it's an outlandish plan, because it's a rezoned field. Now, I would ask the question, is that the right process? It doesn't seem to me to be any different to what the argument that was just made over the nursing home going on the Rue de Houquet, in the same parish, in fact. And it's not a case of, do you support nursing homes or don't you? Do you support the elderly or don't you? Do you support increasing better care facilities in the island or don't you? It's about, no, you put the planning application in, and if there's a need for it on this green field, we will pass it. And there's a risk, sir, for anyone listening outside, that they'll listen to this debate and think, okay, look, it's okay to have due process in certain circumstances. And I've listened to the nuanced arguments, people in the previous debate who were saying, no, we can't possibly pass this field for a care home because it's got to go through the right process. Now saying, well, actually, I think it's getting quite late. I think the groundswell of opinion is that we need to be getting behind sport. I personally don't have a problem with encouraging sport on the island, but I don't know particularly what kind of facility this is going to be. I don't know what the people of St. Martin's think. Certainly if I were in St. Martin's and if I was in a political position, I would want to be asking the parish what they thought. I would want there to be a parish assembly. I would want a planning application to be put in on this. And I would also ask that what if it was an amendment to put something else on the field? If we were asking to put affordable homes on this particular field, would we be saying, yes, absolutely, let's do that? So what I would say is that we can't simply be saying, yes, I support sport, yes, I like cricket, therefore, let's get behind this. I think we need to go through the absolute correct channels and process to make sure the decisions that we make are consistent and that we're not seen to be getting behind causes or indeed laudable causes and doing, I'll leave it at that, sir. I think it's important that the process, like the Minister said, and we can't simply think because this is a good, well-established cricket ground in the area by somebody who's proven himself to be a strong supporter, that we automatically therefore say, there you go, there's planning permission. I would say that actually the process, that as frustrating as it might have been for Senator Pallett to have gone through that with Strive and others who have sought to support that, it was the correct process nonetheless. Strive is there. We have a rugby club and we have a Strive next to it. Now, as I see it, they're not inherently linked. You know, I don't see Strive as providing a direct rugby service any more than I would expect whatever happens to that field to be a cricket facility. It would be strange if it wasn't in some ways. But then does that mean that every field we have, every football club, you know, St. Peter's Football Club, what if they wanted to put an application in to develop a field next to it for a centre of excellence for football? It doesn't seem to make sense that we should be making those kind of decisions outside of a wider sports strategy, sir. So I think for good reason, we should be voting against this to set good example and process. And that doesn't by any means suggest that we're against sports, sir.
Thank you, Deputy. Senator Farnham.
Well, sir, I mean, since I put my light on, Senator Pallett and Deputy of Trinity, sir, have spoken. I think who presented pretty well the arguments. I won't repeat them, sir. I was a bit stumped at some of Deputy Teddy's comments, but bowled over with the original amendment. I thought, how's that, when I looked at the details, and I want to make sure we keep the debate within the boundaries, so we don't want to get caught out by any silly points. But I think I'll probably leave it at that, sir, and I'm supportive. I mean, just going back to the serious point of the rezoning, it's a bit like when we look at the overall budget. You know, health is extremely important, but we don't put all of our funding into health, and just as housing is the key challenge, I don't think we have to just think if we're not putting housing on a particular site, we can't put anything else on it. The development of sport is extremely important, and we've seen that where we do invest in facilities, we tend to see standards rise, lots of opportunities appear, and Jersey rises, punches above its weights, and competes on the international stage. So I think cricket is a good case in point. So I am very minded to support this, not just in my capacity as a minister with responsibility for sports, but just I think as an islander who wants to see Jersey continue to succeed in certain sporting activities, or most sporting activities, so I'm minded to support it. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Senator. Your point of clarification, Deputy Higgins, was that of Senator Farnham? It probably wasn't, was it?
It was, sir, because
was it?
Unfortunately, the question I've got to ask is the Constable of St Martin asked a number of questions earlier, which he wanted, I think, Senator Farnham to answer, and some others, and none of them have been answered. Unfortunately, I can't find my notes at the moment to actually clarify what they are. I'm hoping that Constable St Martin will seek a point of clarification of her points. Thank you, sir.
That's not a point of clarification, I don't
Well,
think.
sir, if it wasn't a point of clarification, but I understand the Deputy of Trinity answered those points in relation to having discussed the matter with the proprietor of the field and having it been discussed at the department, so which I thought was the constable's question, which is why I didn't raise it, because I understood the Deputy of Trinity excuse me, address those questions.
Thank you, Senator. Deputy Southern.
Sir, and that's entirely appropriate. I'd almost drifted off there. I could see you were mouthing something. I couldn't hear a thing. Which puts into context what my colleague Deputy Tadier has just said, that we're in the zone now where we risk making some terrible decisions. And because we just need to stop. We've done actually not 7 but 8. We're towards the end of the 8th day. And at its basics, we can sum it up by saying it's not a question of how much you love cricket, and it's not a measure of how much you love sport. The question is one of procedure, and the question is one of adjacency. We've heard that one of the reasons is that this facility will be put next to the cricket field. May I remind members that it would also be next to a big shed. And the way forward is really get that big shed realigned and then perhaps come back to the Estates and ask to put in the facility. We've already got a shed there. Change of use, very simple.
Thank you, Deputy. Deputy Truscott.
Thank you, sir. And it's been an interesting debate. I've got to say, I too sat on the original Strive application to the Planning Committee, and I was one of I think I was the only member who voted against this, the original Strive building. And for me, it was building in the green zone, which I was against, and I think it was the visual impact that this particular building would have had. One, for people landing in Jersey, they'd see this rather large industrial-looking building to the left or right, whichever way you're coming in. And I just think the impact in the green zone was just too much for me. Obviously, the other members thought otherwise and voted accordingly. I've got to say I was fully supportive of the applicant. I think the intention was totally laudable, and I really do. I remember commending him for bringing it forward, and I thought it was great to have individuals wanting to invest so heavily in sport in the island. And let's face it, the actual provision of what's been put there has paid dividends. We've put our profile up in the sporting world. So I did also at the time criticise the fact for me that there seemed to be little coordinated thinking, joined up thinking as part of the sports strategy. I know the constable who did of St Brelard, Senator Pallett now, did only come to that meeting and really put a very good case forward. And I know he was struggling to make headwind against, it seemed at the time, opposition of that Council of Ministers. But me, I just felt that there wasn't a policy in place. I just felt there was no joined up thinking, a sports strategy. There's been talk for absolutely years, I think, of a national stadium locally, but we ended up with Springfield and just the poor imitation of one, sadly. Now, when it comes to this particular amendment, I have concerns. If we are to vote this through this afternoon, it is a case of it's jumped the first significant hurdle. The original Strive 1 had the big hurdle to jump, which was policy NE7. And just let members know, policy NE7 sets a presumption, but not an absolute moratorium against development in the green zone. So a case can be made, and then it's down to the balanced judgment of the committee to vote the way they feel has been justified. So I have got reservations about this going forward. I look forward to the deputies summing up. But I am comforted to a degree that this will, I won't make plainly any prejudgments about how when it does come to planning committee, how it will go. But it will have a significant amount of hurdles to jump, really to get to the next stage. So that I'm comforted by. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Deputy. Does anyone wish to speak on this amendment? Conatable of St Lawrence.
Thank you, sir. I'd just like to say a few words to this amendment. I note Appendix 1 lists the international cricket teams that have played at the Farmers Field. And I'd like to make a declaration, sir, that I too have played at the Farmers Field. And as I look around the chamber, I see Deputy Southern, who I know has also played cricket on that hallowed ground. I'm not sure if anyone, maybe Senator Pallett as well, sir, because we played for the States of Jersey many years ago when we used to play against the States of Guernsey. And I think probably we may have won the that competition when we played at the Farmers Field, sir. And as I say, it was some years ago, and I haven't visited it since then, but my recollection of my game there, I was put on the boundary, sir, because I wasn't a very good player, but I was maybe not almost out of sight. And I've heard that we are encouraging women to play cricket, so maybe I should try and get back into it again. But my recollection of the field it was great. It was a cricket pitch. And the only building that I remember on what is, of course, a very big site was the pavilion, where we enjoyed a breakfast when we arrived, and we enjoyed a good lunch during the lunch break. So it was very green. It wasn't really built upon other than the cricket pavilion. But what we are being asked to agree today by the Deputy of St Martin is in principle to rezone field MN 727 to allow a future application to the planning committee to build indoor cricket facility and other associated sporting facilities on that site. And what we've heard from the Environment Minister is that this is a 5 Vergee field. I think Vergee is the proper measurement that we should be referring to in the States Chamber, but it's 5 Vergees, and it's so large that in fact, if an application went in to put housing on it, we've heard from the Minister that it would probably comfortably accommodate 35 homes. So it comes down to me, sir, to make a decision on this. It's for the balance again. I think we had a very good speech from the Minister explaining his reasons for not supporting this, reasons which were not recognised by the inspectors when they deliberated on this. They thought that the sports strategy that we've signed up to should override the loss of agricultural land, should override the impact that a building would inevitably have on the countryside were this in principle rezoning to be approved and then a planning application approved at a later date. But of course, if we rezone this, what we are effectively saying is that at some time in the future, the developer, the applicant, will without a doubt get that building on that field, because there will be a presumption that because the land has been rezoned, they will have to go through planning procedure, they will have to adhere to planning policies, but something will be built there. And what we don't know at the moment is the size of what will be proposed to be built there. And is it one building? Will it be more? We just don't know. The problem is, to me, sir, we will lose that field. We will be encouraging far more vehicles using the country lanes to get to it. And it's the wrong place. It's the wrong place, in my very humble, sir, opinion. I spoke against developing L127 because it was the wrong place to put a housing estate. I believe that MN727 is the wrong place to put this rather massive sports facility. It would impact upon the character of the countryside, sir, and it would be completely out of place. So I would urge members to think very carefully about what we are being asked to do here, because we are being asked to rezone. And as far as I'm concerned, sir, notwithstanding my performance on the cricket field many years ago, which may not have been, it's not very memorable because I don't see Deputy Southern shaking his head and saying, Constable, you did really well many years ago, because obviously I didn't. Notwithstanding that, sir, if I can't support building much needed homes on agricultural land, smack bang in the middle of our green zone in the countryside, I regret that I can't support rezoning to provide this sporting facility, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin Tarb. Deputy Higgins.
Thank you, sir. And I'll be brief because the Constable St Lawrence has made a lot of excellent points, as has the Minister for the Environment, Deputy Taddia, Deputy Labby. There are so many things against this. I do not like the idea that we are essentially sort of the first stage of getting planning permission for this particular thing without knowing what's going to take place there. Secondly, we're told that the International Cricketing Federation supports this, but we're also told that there's another plan for a cricketing centre at Grainville. Do they support that? We have no knowledge at all. I just think that we should not be using the island plan as a means of getting planning permission for private schemes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Deputy. Does any other wishes to speak? If not, I call upon the Deputy St Martin to reply. Deputy St Martin.
Thank you, sir, and it's been a considerably longer debate than I expected to have, but I'm very grateful to all States members for taking part. I'll do my best to, I'm not sure we'll get anything more done this evening, but I've certainly got time to sum up in any case, sir. Thank you. I'll just run through the contributors, if I may, as quickly as possible. Deputy Pamplin, thank you. Success in a great story to promote the island, and he spoke about access for all. Mike Constable made a good speech there, and I'm grateful to her for making that. She and I obviously confer greatly on parish matters, and she's right. This has been very difficult to take a balanced view and to hear both sides. It's been a mighty difficult decision for those of us who represent St Martin, because this is a rural area, this is agricultural land, and we don't know yet exactly how this land is going to be used. I have to say to her, I haven't spoken to the teachers at the school, or spoken, yes, it's clear that it's close to St Martin School for access, and I haven't spoken to others who might use this facility. I am clear, sir, that if this moves forward from today, that there will be, and I've told the applicant this already, there will be planning obligation agreements, there will be conditions, there will be a whole string of hoops that will have to be jumped through. And there will also be, and I'll come to it again in the future, some sort of obligation to allow public access and to allow education to use the facility. And I've told the person that already, and I've used the example of Strive, and I think, I want to no illusions that this is not straightforward. Deputy Ash loves sport. He supports the wrong football team. He says we aim at the top, provide the facility, and allow dreams to happen, and I agree, sir. I'll come back to that at the end. Deputy Wickenden said the site was better at Strive. He quoted back again the agricultural land in a rural area. He spoke about school access, and he raised the subject, which was then brought up by many others, about this is really a planning application. Well, I can agree and disagree, sir, because where are people to start? They either start here or they start outside of the island. But we are put here, when I come to Deputy Taddia, we're put here to make decisions, and this has been put in front of us and we're being asked. But Deputy Wickenden said, we'll have to have the detail on why here. Well, the reason is in the planning inspector quote, sir, the site is the logical place for such a facility. Deputy Labby raised the issue of the Strive application. He told the story, and I'm going to come back to that right at the end, of how Strive came to be. He said we need to be ambitious and positive, and I completely agree with them. But then he came back to the point that this is actually a planning application and shouldn't be in front of us today. That's his opinion. And he also said, and I want to refer to it, that the indoor centre could be anywhere. And of course, he's absolutely right. You could build a shed, you could put an indoor cricket centre any part of the island. But what you might not have alongside it are nets or outdoor facilities. And it certainly wouldn't be described as a centre if all it provided was an indoor pitch. I thank the Constable of St John's for his encouragement, and yes, it's community use and it's sports tourism, and as I've said before, there will be certainly some serious conditions that will have to be put on to make sure that the community use comes forward. Senator Pallett, thank you for your contribution, and I agree the determination shown by the person who's driven the Strive Centre forward at St Peter's is par excellence, and I know that the owner of the cricket pitch at the Farmers Field is another one who feels absolutely passionate about his sport and has worked tirelessly day and night to get it to where it is. The Minister for Sport, Deputy Raymond, thank you for your support, and again needs a planning application. I agree, and the detail will come in the planning application. I can say that to Deputy Morell as well. He was another one concerned about duplication at Grainville, and I think we need to be clear, sir. Grainville is the home of Jersey cricket, and I think it always will be. but we do have the opportunity to have an area of cricket excellence in St Martin. Deputy Mayor said the facility at St Martin would have to look better than the one at St Peter, and I tend to agree. And I would say to others who've raised the issue, if this application does come forward, and I refer to the Constable of St Lawrence, you know, this is an impact on the environment. There's a whole list of policies it's going to have to jump through. It's going to have to somehow camouflage itself. It's going to have to do all sorts of wonderful things. And then we come to the Minister, who spoke about 35 homes. And I can't disagree, sir. What is this is an agricultural field, and we've had some heart-searching over the last 8 days. And you know, what can I say? It could potentially have been a home for 35, a site for 35 homes. The Minister spoke about associated facilities, and there will have to be some, because this is how the facility will have to be paid for. If Strive just allowed the public and the education people to use it and didn't charge, it wouldn't be working. So I think we need to accept, and I'm not trying to hide the fact, if this is a centre of excellence, there will have to be a certain level of commerciality about it in order to justify the expense in the first place. The evidence will have to come forward in the application. Yes, Minister, I couldn't agree with you more. There will be a lot of detail in the application and a lot of boxes to tick. But the planning inspector did say yes, and I have to say to members, it was the owner of the site who took it to the planning inspector in public, not me, not a States member, not the Constable of St Martin's. He went himself and spoke in the public about it, and managed to gain the support of the inspector himself. The Minister mentioned that decent facilities are needed, and he's quite right. But he said, is it right to take this step now? Could we wait another 4 years? Well, maybe we could, I don't know. But we're being put in front of us today, and we will vote on it. Deputy Tadlier didn't start off well, sir, because his maths is not his best subject today. He was talking about the 7th day. I know it's been a long 2 weeks, but actually it's day 8. But he made his point. He certainly did, and he got our attention, got my attention, because at least I can add up 7 and 1 is 8. But there we are. And again, we came back to that. This is what we're here for. Should we be having applications like this brought before the Assembly? We might disagree on that. This is a first step, and I can't disagree with him. If this goes through today, it will make it easier for the next step on that torturous process. But you have to start somewhere. Is this a contrived situation? I don't think so. I've spoken to the applicant about this possibility of this some time ago now. I wasn't aware he was taking it to the public, the inspector in public, but he did. And he came back to me, and on the basis of the support from the inspector, I said I would put it in front of members today. I have to say that I haven't been to the Parish Assembly to ask for their agreement or their views. There is a process to be followed, and I have to say to members, sir, if there's a lesson I've learned from this whole debate, if I'm fortunate enough to be here in 4 years' time, and we do this all again, I will be asking my constable if we can do it very differently to the way we've done it this time. It's clear that, I'm sure the Minister would agree, there are better ways of proposing some of these housing sites, and I think we will do things differently in the future. Senator Farnham, thank you, very good, a very quick and very amusing speech, but after anybody who can find a case for putting a hospital on top of the hill must find it very easy to find a case for a cricket field in the middle of the countryside. Deputy Southern said, sir, that we're in the zone of terrible decision making, and he might actually be right, because when we get to day 8, it's starting to become very difficult to know which day of the week it is, and we do need to be careful that we don't do something wrong at 5:25 on a Wednesday afternoon in week 2. And he asked the question about the sheds, and I've asked the question about the sheds myself, sir. I'm assured that the agricultural sheds adjacent to the site are in a joint ownership, and they're not owned by the person who owns the cricket field. Deputy Truscott told us how he voted against Strive, and saw little joined-up strategy for sport, his concerns and his reservation of a development in the green zone. And of course, he's quite right, sir. An agreement today may take us a step closer, but actually there's still a lot of hurdles to get over to build a facility such as this in the green zone. The Constable of St Lawrence told us about how she played cricket at Farmersfield, and I too have played there. But of course she mentioned a good point, sir, because she mentioned women's cricket. And of course women's and girls' cricket is something which is on the fall at the moment and must be encouraged at all opportunities. She's quite right. There was and only a pavilion on the site. It is the most wonderful of sites, so those of us who have been there. And I think she's probably right to challenge. If you stand in the middle of the Farmers cricket field on a sunny afternoon and you look around, you see very little in the way of buildings other than the pavilion, which fits in very well. So we know there's some challenges of design, there's some challenges of impact, and that's all going to have to be overcome if we move forward. Deputy Higgins said, we don't know what's coming. He mentioned Grainville duplication, and he is not going to support, and I take sympathy with his views. But I just go back to sum up, sir. I'd just say that I started this debate by saying that we needed to take, and I use the words here of the ex-constable of St Mary, who was on the planning panel that approved Strive, when she said, and her words have stuck in my mind ever since, she was taking a leap of faith when she pushed the P button for that application. And I asked members to take a bit of a leap of faith today. We know it's going to be a challenge, but I mentioned to States members dreams and the rights of youngsters to dream, and I talk about people like Graham Lasso, who aspired and played for his country, people like Becky Herbert, who played hockey for her country, but more recently, sir, and we've mentioned netball and we've mentioned the hopes of netball at St Peter, Serena Guthrie, who has come up from the ranks through our schools in Jersey and has been described by many people who know far better than me as the best netball player in the world. And she came from Jersey, and because of the facilities and the training and help she's had, you know, youngsters, young girls in Jersey can now aspire to be like her, and there are others coming up behind her. So, sir, I know this is an application which isn't everybody's cup of tea, but it is a vision for the future. It does help the island to look upon, so others can look upon us as a centre of sporting excellence. And I ask members to take that leap of faith taken by the ex-Constable of St Mary so long ago, along with the Planning Committee about Strive, and I ask for the appel. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Deputy, there's a request for clarification from the Deputy of Trinity. Will you accept that request?
Absolutely, sir.
Yes, Deputy of Trinity. Deputy Trinity, do you want to make your request for clarification? We'll move to the appel.
May I? It was just to clarify something from my own speech as such. It was just apologies. It may not have been Senator Pallett who mentioned the name first. I've been thinking about it since we talked about the name and I was in breach of standing orders and I mentioned Senator Pallett. I don't think it was him. I think it was a voice from the ether, sir.
Right.
Rather than someone in the chamber.
Thank you. Deputy Trinity? If members are content, we'll move to the appel. The appel is being called for. Members are invited to return to their seats. Those joining the meeting via the Teams link are invited to cast their votes in the chat channel and ask the greffier to open the voting for members in the chamber. Four members have had the opportunity of casting their votes. Then I ask the greffier to close the voting. And I can announce that the amendment has been rejected. 18 votes pour, 27 votes contre, and 1 abstention.
Can I pose the adjournment, please, sir?
Sir.
Can we have the...
Well, gosh, there's lots of lights at once. Does someone want the names read out first before I hear anything else?
I think Deputy Higgins,
Let's do that.
Those voting for in the chamber, Senators Farnham, Moore and Pallett, the Connétabs of St Mary, St Wan and St John, Deputy of St Martin, St Mary, Deputy Morrell and Deputy Pamplin. Those voting for in the chat, Senator Ferguson, Senator Gorst, Deputy Truscott, Deputy Ash, Deputy of St Peter, the Deputy of Trinity, Deputy Gardner and the Deputy of Grouville. Those voting contre in the chamber, Senator Mezek, the Connétabs of St Lawrence, St Bralard, Grouville and St Peter and St Clement, Deputy Southern, Lewis, Tadier, St Wan, Young, Guida, Hegera, Ayer and Ward. And in the chat, Deputy Higgins, Pershard, Wickenden, the Connétable of St Saviour, Deputy Alves, Senator Lafondre, the Connétable of St Helier, Senator Valois, Deputy Labby, Deputy Doublé, the Deputy of St John, the Connétable of Trinity, and it was the Connétable of St Martin who abstained.
Senator Moore, I think I saw your light first.
Thank you, sir. Before the adjournment is proposed, I thought it might be wise if the Assembly considered how we're going to deal with business going forward. I don't think we're as advanced as we thought we might be today, and I was perhaps going to propose that we sit late tomorrow night, please.
Yes, we could do that. Connétable of Grouville, your light was on as well?
Yes, sir. I was going to make exactly the same point because I don't like making a decision like that on the day because it doesn't give people an opportunity to make other arrangements for childcare or other responsibilities they have. So I think people should at least be prepared to extend tomorrow's sitting. We've gone through, I think, 6 items today and we've got 12 left. So yes. We've got a problem on our hands, sir.
Yes. Another member wish to say something before we that's proposed? Yes, Minister.
So I absolutely agree. I'm quite troubled about the timing. The only thing I would wonder whether we could have half an hour adjournment because members are tired and, you know, there is a risk of bad decision making. So we at least have a chance to refresh.
No,
tomorrow,
for
yes.
Tomorrow, Minister.
Yes. So in other words, when we get to 5:30 or 5 or what, we adjourn for half an hour and then come back. I also think, sir, I'll go on to say, I think we might make the same arrangement for Friday in order to finish if necessary. So perhaps we should take the Thursday suggestion first.
Yes. What's your proposition, Senator Moore, then?
That we sit until 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock. I'm looking at members around the chamber, but that we sit late tomorrow evening after a half-hour adjournment at 5:30.
So you propose that we sit till 8 p.m. tomorrow after a short adjournment at 5:30.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. Is that seconded?
Yes, sir.
Does any member wish to speak on that proposition?
So I just want to raise one point, and I have no problem if people are ill, and I know we have COVID, but it does seem to be that some members are not in the chamber but can attend other events,
And if you're in the chamber, staying till 8 o'clock is very different from sitting at home and staying till 8 o'clock. And I just think that, I just want to raise that point because I think it's important that it's raised. Thank you,
It's
sir.
a point that's well made, Deputy Ward. Any other member wish to speak on this proposition? Shall we proceed on a standing vote then? Those in favour of sitting till 8 p.m. tomorrow night, please show. Those against? Thank you very much.
May I propose the adjournment now? Sir?
Yes, is that
So,
seconded?
sorry, sir, I've just got one more point of order, which leads on from Deputy Ward's point, sir. Could you tell us what the reasons are that somebody needn't be in this assembly? So my understanding was that, obviously, if you have COVID or being tested for COVID, you shouldn't be here. But I'm well aware, sir, that there's some people are going about...
Just making sure my understanding of the position was the same as the Greffier's, which it is, which is in summary, as people outside this chamber are expected to go to work as usual, then people inside this chamber would also attend this chamber, unless there was a health or other similar reason not to do so. That was my understanding, and the Greffier agrees with it.
Thank you, sir, because it's my understanding that there are members that are going back about their ordinary business but not attending this assembly. If they don't attend tomorrow, will they be on defer, sir?
Well, that's a matter I'll consider overnight.
Before we, could I also further propose that we consider a contingency arrangement similar for Friday? Because otherwise I think it's better that we conclude this week and don't go into next week. So I think it would be good if we made that as a contingency. I hope we don't need it, because I think there's less contentious business towards the end, but fingers crossed, sir. So I make that as a proposition, that we make a contingency arrangement to stay late on Friday if necessary.
Yes, your proposal is that the Assembly sits until it finishes on Friday. What is your proposition, that the Assembly sits until it finishes?
We make a similar arrangement for the plan sitting on Friday, because I don't believe we'll finish tomorrow, so that if to finish the business, we carry on until 8 p.m. with a half an hour adjournment in order to just refresh ourselves, but 8 o'clock tomorrow would be it.
Yes. Is that seconded? Yes. Do you wish to speak, Deputy Southern?
Yes, just briefly to point out that my experience is that we go on usually till we fill the time allotted, and I just suggest that we risk that again.
Yes, well, that's a point well made as well.
So could I just make an observation?
Yes,
I hope obviously that we can finish by Friday and not 10 o'clock on Friday, but I think we need to have contingencies whereby if we're not finishing at a reasonable hour, we look at whether we can roll over until the next session and then we just knock on the business. It's not an ideal situation, but I think we need to be aware of trying to cram in till 10 o'clock. And what happens if we've still got business at 10 o'clock on a Friday night? I think we need to think about just moving over other propositions which can wait, because this needs to be finished first.
Well, the proposal is only that we sit till 8 p.m.
Sir, would it
on
help
Friday.
if I withdrew? I think members might like to think, and we can discuss this tomorrow. I think I'll withdraw my proposition, if I may. Can I do that?
Are members content to permit the Deputy to... Yes, you may do so. Any more matters to raise before we adjourn? Accordingly, we adjourn until 9:30 tomorrow morning.